Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
We're gonna get a little bit crazy, wild and maybe even vulgar, if you please. It's after dark and we're gonna light it up. We got some fun in store for you, no tease. It's time for Midnight Sesh After Dark. A little naughty, will hopefully make you chuckle, but we ain't trying to hurt nobody, so get ready quick on the double, cause it's time for Midnight Sesh After Dark.
That's right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday night. Tonight, who will replace Mr. Iger? And are you racist, or am I racist? That's the question, and we know the answer, I think. Of course I am, according to everybody else. Greetings, good evening, good morning, whatever it is, where you is. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday night. We are hanging out at the UFO Hotel here at Midnight's Edge After Dark. How are you all doing? We got Brian coming in from Canada, sounding an awful lot like a Scot.
Oh, geez a break, man. You dauber.
Diddly diddly potatoes.
Diddly 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 potatoes. That's it. Yes,
Irish.
good evening. I'm Irish.
I'm
Yes,
Irish.
Yeah. Yes, well, the question
I
answer
hate
to your,
him.
the answer to your question, Tom, am I racist, is according to doctrine, yes, you are. Now, what's your excuse?
I hate every Scottish person I know.
Aye. Well, that's all right. You know, we did
hate us
spend
Irish.
thousands of years killing each other. So
That's
you know,
right. Yeah. Look a lot like each other, but fuck, racist
fighting
bullshit.
over
Like,
the odd sheep here or there.
I was gonna say,
you
like,
know.
Irish and Scots hate everybody. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's like,
we hate each other the most. Though.
the most, exactly.
Like within our own families, even. You know?
Didn't they invent domestic disputes? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think Ireland did that when they split into 2 countries.
Yeah. And then a whole bunch got expelled to Scotland, the Scotia. And that's how it's called
you
Scotland.
get the fuck out.
Yeah. They didn't like the way they held their barbecued mutton leg, leg of mutton. You get the folk out of here. You
Fook. Say it
get
right.
the folk. Get the folk. Get the frack. Get the frack out of here.
Yeah, back then they actually would have probably said frack. You're right. And we also have another Canadian with us, and him I don't suspect of being from anywhere else but Canada. And of course, a script doctor.
Yeah, happy to be here this evening. It's nice temperate weather where I'm at, and not Scottish cold, and definitely not Welshy rain. Nice, relaxing.
Yeah, not too bad here. We got 80s this week, so can't complain. And
Fine
Celsius,
decade.
of course. It was. Speaking of the 80s, I'm sure Price was born at some point in that decade. How you doing, Price?
He's
muted.
He's doing mute.
Now he's unmuted.
Am I still muted? I don't think I'm the one that muted me.
No, I muted everybody at the intro. But
I didn't notice. I usually don't talk in the intro, so.
Yeah, but then we get awkward breathing over Clobby, and it's just kind of weird.
Oh, I understand. Well, I have been known to
You do?
breathe awkwardly.
Yeah, it's just like little Clobby pictures up there, and you just hear.
It's enough having Tom heavy breathing without the rest of us.
I know, I breathe heavy enough for everybody. Yeah. So how you doing, Price? How you been?
I've been okay. I guess you finally saw that Am I an Ist movie.
I did, and a few of us on the panel have, and some of us already know it well enough that I think we'll have enough to talk about here about that and some other things. So yeah, we're going to talk about that and
Cool.
Bob and whatever else comes up today. So thank you for being here. Yeah, and we also have CC karaoke. We're just full of Canadians today. I'm surrounded by Canadians.
Mhm.
Yes, you are. You're outnumbered. We're coming to get you.
We're here
I
to
know
say
you're
sorry.
Canadian.
We're
You're
surrounded
about as
you.
Canadian as they come,
And
CC.
you'll accept our apology whether you like it or not.
CC is like the stereotype of Canadian, just regular Joes. Like just
Yeah.
constantly camping.
He's as camp as many Canadians.
I'm in
that's
logging
true.
country. That's what we do up here. We log. You're the source of your toilet paper.
And all your lumber.
It's true.
True.
And our maple syrup.
Well, we
Top
don't
lot
give
of
you the
wood.
good stuff.
Of course not. We know better. Why do you think we add so much sugar to it? Or should I say
It's corn syrup, really.
corn syrup and
Mm.
shit like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Our maple syrup doesn't need any extra sugar. It's
No.
very good for you.
Sometimes we get some local. Actually, we're north enough here where we can get some local stuff that ain't so bad.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you're close enough. Yeah, like your state's close enough to the border.
Yeah.
You're almost Canadian. Sort
Yeah,
of.
we do all right here. So, but I feel bad for those down south who are like, you're literally just getting mostly corn syrup. Like, and there's some cases where when they say pancake syrup, it's not maple syrup, guys. It's just fucking
Sugar.
corn
It's just
syrup,
corn
man.
syrup,
That's,
yeah.
that's all it is.
I
The first
can't
time I
even
ever had
bring-
that, I about gagged, dude. Oh
I
my
can't even
god.
bring Canadian maple syrup into the country, even if I go through all the proper declarations for it. Like I can't bring it into
Because you
the
guys
state
made
at
it
all.
so tough to get it in here.
No, your border made it so tough to get it in here.
No, I know. Because you kept giving us the crap, man.
You
Like,
don't want the competition, do you? Yeah. From
No.
the real stuff.
Yeah.
no, and that's probably because we do have a bunch of northern states who actually do.
Get pretty good stuff in Maine.
Oh, like
and-
Maine. Maine is a great
Yeah.
state that you can get Canadian syrup because
I was going to say
they're
a
on
lot
the
of the
border of
northern
Nova
states
Scotia.
do.
Even upstate New York.
Mhm.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So enough of the geography. Whoa, we got a sticker from 6 already. Let me guess, it's a pooper sticker.
Yep. They're starting to Brunswick. What am I thinking?
She usually sends us a pooper sticker, and she did. So there we go. Thank you for that, 6, and we appreciate the pooper sticker. So we're going to talk a little bit. We talked a little bit before the show, but we're going to talk now more seriously, I guess, about a movie that's out there right now that's getting a lot of interesting reactions one way or the other, depending on who you are, where you're from, what your belief system is, where you're at, all that business. And of course, the movie I'm talking about is Matt Walsh's Am I a Racist? So I have got a chance to see this now thanks to Daily Wire, who provided us with a screener. And I know some of the other members of the panel have seen it, and some of the other members have seen enough of it. Because, yeah, I mean, I'll be frank. If you've seen the trailers and the clips that are online, you've seen most of this movie already, to be honest with you.
That
But-
trailer needs to be that picture you have up needs to be edited with air quotes around the word comedy.
Mm.
That I will not disagree with, because, yeah, I didn't laugh as much as I was hoping I would. But then again, I also have to look at it from the angle of, we've been covering this shit for a while. We know what this DEI stuff, and we know all the ins and outs and the bullshit about it. But I get it. Matt has to present this to an audience that may not have ever even heard of some of the shit. In fact, it's, obviously in the video, in the movie itself, where he's like, somebody even asked, what the fuck is DEI, basically?
Yeah, there's a lot of
You
people
know,
are very unaware.
No, not
Yeah.
everybody knows for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so overall though, I mean, is it a bad movie? No. Is it a great movie? No. If you're somebody who already knows all this stuff, you're probably going to be squirming through a lot of the movie because you're going to be like, well, why didn't he say this? Why didn't he do that? Why? To where if you're somebody who's completely new to this, or this might be eye-opening for you, I can understand it. So I don't want to like trash the film, but yeah, it does. It's, as far as a movie goes, it does have some issues, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. We also have Nick joining us. How you doing, Nick?
Hello. How's it going? So yeah, this movie definitely seems to be making some waves. This Am I Racist?
It is. And I got a clip that I'm going to show here in just a minute that kind of shows both sides of what I'm getting at here. But we got Daryl Brewer in the house, who's been here for 37 months, and he's a wrench. So we have 4 men lacking pigment and an orange man talking about Rism. Yep, you all are, yeah. Well, according to any of the DEI folks that they expose in this film, clearly we are, because we're white. So, except for we're not sure about Price.
We all know Price is black.
I don't know why you always say that, but okay.
Swarthy, I would say, is the word.
I always thought
Dude,
he'd be
he's
a little more-
orange. What are you guys kidding? He's freaking orange. Just look at him.
He might be Trump for all we
He's
know.
he's
really.
he's a Trump fish.
I'm undercover. On YouTube.
I go by Price of Reason. Subscribe. Check it out.
price of reason is. So yeah, Price, you saw this in theaters.
Yes.
Nick, have you seen it yet?
I have not, but I've watched all your guys' reviews. It's just sadly I'm not in a position where I can get out to see this. But you can spoil it for me. I mean, I'll see this inevitably. I've only been hesitant because of how I felt about Lady Ballers. I know you've heard my feelings on that atrocity quite a bit, but
Right.
I'll give
Well,
this
this
a
is
shot.
different than that, right? Like, see, Lady Ballers to me is the exact opposite of what movies should be doing, right? Because, like I've pointed out, like I don't want politics in my movies, period, outside of maybe just a little bit here and there,
Like
to
an
lean
action
into
thriller that has like a political
whatever,
edge
like a
to it.
political
Yeah.
thriller or whatever, something like
Yeah.
that's a little understandable, or an indie film or something like that. Fine. When I go see
Agreed.
Star Wars, when I go see a Marvel movie, whatever, unless it's maybe a Captain American movie, then I can maybe understand a little bit. But even then,
Well,
it
it's
should
fictional
still be
politics. There's a difference.
exactly. It should be fictional politics and not exactly stuff that's being affected by the modern world. A documentary, on the other hand, is a different animal altogether. As far as I'm concerned, you can make a documentary about anything you want, but the onus is on you to make sure that it ain't full of shit, right? Because people will figure it out. And in this day and age, especially with the internet, people will call you out on your shit. In fact, I don't think you were here, Script, when we were talking about this last week when we brought this up initially when it was first being talked about before I had a chance to see it. I think Price had seen it. But we were talking about, like Morgan Spurlock, who we recently just lost. But I brought up the whole controversy over his, Super Size Me documentary, for instance.
Yeah, because that was full of crap.
Kind of, yeah. And we're not even kind of. Yeah, it was really full of crap. Like I pointed out, like he failed to, let us know as an audience certain things. He had a strict vegan diet just before he went and did this, so that probably didn't help his situation. Not to mention, he was an alcoholic.
I
Yeah,
never
he was
took that guy seriously. From the moment that I saw like normies getting all excited and telling me about that movie, I knew it was a piece of shit, treated it as such, and until this day I feel very good about myself that I knew that he was full of shit.
Well, he was just basically
from day
playing
one.
on the idea that everybody knows that fast food is not good for you, right?
Yes.
So
but
he
he's
had to
also
amp it up to the
amplifying it being a
extreme.
lot worse
Exactly.
than it actually was. I mean, listen, I don't eat much fast food at all, ever. But I think it was a big mistake for any of the chains to get rid of their Super Size Me style stuff, because some people need that and like that. And why restrict them from that deal, which does save them money?
He was a charlatan. He was just a charlatan. The thing is that even if you don't go to McDonald's and every morning, afternoon, and dinner, you flip a million burgers and eat a bunch of crap all day, you're still going to get fat and it's still going to be bad. So that whole idea was just annoying. And I, until this day, don't prefer that guy.
Well, and you could even make an argument that since he was vegan at the time, he had a completely ulterior motive.
Who, Matt Walsh was vegan?
No.
Morgan
Spurlock was.
Spurlock,
No, so in
okay.
this case, though, so here's my thing about, and this is the point I was kind of getting to with this is, Matt, on the other hand, because I was I've heard a lot of people compare this to Borat. The difference with Borat was punching down a lot of the time in his movie, right? First of all. Second of all, it was different in the sense that, how do I put this? The characters that he was doing in a way that he was the one saying the extreme shit. And we kind of talked about this before the show. Like, he was the one doing the extreme shit, trying to get the reactions out of the normal people, to where Matt is trying to act like the normal person and get their reaction, it's the opposite. Does that make sense? What I'm trying
It's
to say?
an inversion of the premise. Yeah.
That translates, but it reminds me of, because I watched the review from Andre this morning, and he said it was basically how it was comparable to Borat was in the sense that basically you're saying how hypocritical the other side is, and that's something Borat was using his actions to show how, I guess you could say, intolerant the people he didn't agree with politically are. And Matt's trying to do the same thing. Obviously, he's not the one doing the actions. You're right. There is obviously a little bit of a different curve to it, but he's still trying to expose the inconsistencies, hypocrisies, at least what he perceives as that.
Yeah, Borat did
Yeah.
in the initial TV run when the character was on the Ali G show in the UK, did tackle a few politicians, some famous ones,
Right.
and did bait them quite successfully into revealing some of their bullshit. And he was actually across the spectrum as well, which was quite refreshing. He wasn't keeping it to
The
one
first.
side.
Hey, Jason from Sci-Fi for Me TV. How you doing?
Howdy.
I'm assuming you've seen this movie.
I have not yet, but I have another aspect to this to bring up later.
All right. No problem. So as you were saying, Brian, sorry.
No, I just said that his initial, some of his initial Borat pieces on the Ali G show way back were quite. They were punching up. I mean, he was taking on. He had
and there
some
was the first
senior
Borat
political
film,
figures were involved.
Yeah, and even in the first Borat film, he does too. You're right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. And
So
in that
all
respect,
down.
it wasn't all down. But no, the second one definitely was. Like the second one was really.
Oh,
bad.
where he was the fashion guy. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean the second Borat movie, but yeah, even the fashion one was
There
pretty
was a
bad.
Borat too. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah,
That
you
was more of
forgot?
an actual movie
With
as
his
opposed to
daughter.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was more of an actual movie as opposed to Bruno.
It
and
was.
Yetzel.
You're right. That was just more of that actually had more of a storyline.
But
You're not
I will say
wrong.
this: like the one thing that he did, which I think Matt Walsh was trying to emulate, is his miniseries "Who Is America," where he basically did go after some politicians that expose their hypocrisy and how desperate they are to be liked by other people. So like there's that aspect there. But the thing is, even though I don't think Sacha Baron Cohen is like the greatest comedian of all time, I do admire his commitment to the character. Matt doesn't have any of that agency, like at all. He's one dimensional.
Here's one of the scenes where he actually does kind of play a character, and it doesn't really work. That's my point, my problem with this, because with Borat, and I'm not trying to say that was better or anything like that. I'm just saying the difference is he would push into it, lean into it, try to make the people uncomfortable. Matt does that in an earlier scene in the film, but he just basically gets kicked out of the room. And then after that, they figure out who he is before he comes back in. And then he leaves the room and then they kick him out. That's what happened. Sorry. And that was one of the earlier, that clip might even be online for that matter, because that's where he got busted. And he decided he has to go a little bit more undercover. So here's another time where he's more undercover. And this is almost the entire fucking clip. And this is what I'm saying, guys. Like, I mean, I'm not saying don't go see this movie, but I know a lot of our audience, none of this stuff is going to be like new
funny
to you at all. As far as the funny bits, yeah, there's a few funny bits in it, but again, I don't jive with Matt Walsh's humor here, and that's just his thing, because he's got this dry, weird, like, there's a way of doing this kind of humor that he's doing that it's not working for him personally, and it's not a crack on him, because it's a great idea. I'm glad he's doing this for the general audience. I do want to express that. But
that's the important part, Tom. The importance is not in whether he stuck the landing or not. It's the fact he was even willing to tackle the topic.
Well, I mean, he's worked for the Daily Wire. They're willing to tackle all these type of topics.
The fact that it's getting this much attention, I think, is the bigger.
It does help. I mean, listen, I know a dozen stand-up comics that if they had $3 million, they would do this themselves, but they don't. So
right, and a stand-up comedian or even somebody who comes from a background of like even let's say like a Daryl Brewer or somebody who can do characters and stuff like that, who just happens to be conservative that I can think of off the top of my head, right? Somebody like that would have run with something like this and would have been able to do what Borat did to the situation. And because that's the thing that Andre and I think had the biggest problem with, and I don't know if you agreed, Price, or whoever else saw the film here, that my biggest issue is that Walsh never pushes back on any of this shit, right? He never presents an alternative idea.
I don't think he was supposed to. I mean, now obviously I know I've not seen this movie, but judging that I've watched like 6-7 different reviews, some spoilers, some non, it seemed like he was, once again, this is more of just him trying to show how crazy everyone else was rather than having, not push back a whole lot. I feel like that was kind of his
but
point. It feels like he was trying to show that they, like, what the extreme left have, that there's no actual solution. They just, this is what they are, and it's, as they like to use about people who are not like them, it's an actual grift.
True, but he does start to do what I'm saying near the end of the film, and I'm like, this should have been more of the film, right?
Okay,
and even Brian saw this bit where, like, when he finally gets DEI certified and he does his own DEI session, like, he takes it to the extreme, and it's really to see how far he can push it before people leave, right? And right away, like, 2 people walk out, and then a few more walk out, and when he gets to the self-flagellation part that Brian was brought up before the show, yeah, that's when, like, half the rest of the crew's like, no, we're done. We can't do this. Like, this isn't ridiculous. Like, so it should have been more of that kind of a thing to show just how fucking ridiculous this shit is.
Well, there's an interesting...
He was doing that towards an audience that came to see him. He wasn't doing that with other DEI people to try and make them be better DEI people, was he?
Well, this was under the auspice of, this was him undercover in his own DEI program that he set up, and that he promoted, but not as Matt Walsh, just as Matt. He didn't tell anybody that he was Matt Walsh.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he didn't bring in other people who are also DEI people that want to be better DEI people, because that's the joke.
Yeah. Well, he kind of got close to it with the D'Angelo chick or whatever, where she fucking basically gave the money over, and this already was out there, so it's not a spoiler or anything like that, where she basically gave the money that she got paid to be on there to the producer of the show because he was black, for reparations. Because Matt gave him whatever he had in his wallet, and she's like, well, this is what we're going to do. And she, like, argued with him for a few minutes about how some people might not think it's a good idea, but she asks him, and the black guy, I forgot his name, I think it was Jeff or something like that. And he goes, I'll take money.
Ben, maybe?
Was it Ben or Jeff? Something like that. And he goes, I'll take money. So she's like, well, I think I got some cash. Like, that's where we're starting to get, like, okay, push these people into that, right? Like, that was what I was saying, is like, okay, do what Borat did to a point, but only do it in a way like, okay, you have all these people, like these DEI people like her and certain other people, push them into actually putting their money where their mouth is, not just literally like he did with her, but like putting them in the position of to actually act upon what it is.
Tom,
and he did that sometimes too with the other stuff, but not as much as he could have.
Tom, let me ask you a question based on a point that you made earlier. The fact that we have been in all of this longer than normies, longer than the usual regular Joe Sixpack people out there. Is it possible that you've got to do this gradually?
That's what I figured too, Jason.
First of all, we expose them using their own methods, their own techniques, their own language, their own scenarios, in order to show regular people out there who haven't been paying attention just what this is all about. At which point, because you have to spoon feed, hey, look at how bad and ridiculous and stupid and terrible this all is. And when the people start waking, it's like when Gina Carano got fired. People started paying attention, people who hadn't been paying attention. You know, you've got, and now you have, the Acolyte failing. And it looks like Agatha all along is probably going to fail as well. That there's more of a discussion when you have these little pieces of something that happens that causes the regular people to pay attention more.
I think Jason's onto something, because that was also the point of the South Park episode too, because a lot of us had a similar complaint about Am I Racist that we had South Park, that they should have gone more in. But once again, they weren't trying to, as we like to say, preaching to the choir. They were trying to speak to the people who are less informed on this subject. I saw Lucifer Morningstar put in the comments. Apparently, he addressed that particular criticism on Joe Rogan's show, which I do now want to check out just to see how he addressed that criticism. But if that's the point, I do think that is a very fair point, because if there's one thing I've learned with getting anyone, I mean absolutely anyone, let's just say quote unquote red pilled, and that doesn't mean become right. It could mean just all that. What I think of red pill just means seeing things for what they are, not what you want out of them.
Yeah.
You cannot just dump a whole truckload on people in one day. They're gonna
I
run
agree,
away.
and I've acknowledged that in the beginning of my review, right? I'm just saying, like, somebody brought up, like asking for reparations outside of the DNC. Yeah, there could have been a little bit more stuff like that. Like, I mean, hell, I'm not saying go to the extreme of like going like, asking chicks at the fucking DNC thing if they want to get knocked up just so they can go have an abortion or something like that.
That would have been kind of funny though.
That would be funny. And I would do something like that, but I don't see Matt doing that. And I agree with you in that respect that, yes, you kind of have to break people in. But I think there was the stuff like the George Floyd monument thing, he could have done more things like that, right? Like that, I think would have made the point hit that point a little bit harder, because I think he has to make the point a little bit more that part of the problem is just everyday regular people. And part of the problem is everybody's just so goddamn afraid, right, of getting canceled.
I have something to say here. When I went to this movie, I actually went with a person that's not really knowledgeable about stuff like this and not really invested like we are, doesn't discuss.
So how did they feel about it then? Yeah.
Yeah, and that person was really intrigued by the movie and really felt that it was sort of educational. So I think that and when I even graded this movie and kind of looked at that, I wasn't looking at the fact that I know what DEI is. Most people don't even know what it is. And I think that this movie, at the end of the day, it gets the job done. The only comment, and I did make that in the movie, that if you were looking for a documentary that sort of gives you some information, especially if you didn't know, I think that it's effective. It's a low budget effort that's basically done pretty well. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's good. I will say that if you were expecting, and I say this in my review, if you were expecting a comedy like Borat, Matt Walsh isn't a comedian. He's not going to provide you. Sacha Baron Cohen may be a jerk, but he's not an untalented jerk, meaning he knew how to do that Borat thing where he gets into character. You need a certain level of showmanship and talent to be able to pull that off. Matt Walsh is not even in the same league as that. So
no, I agree.
The best of what Matt Walsh could do as a political commentator / podcaster, whatever he's supposed to be, I think that's the most you're going to see from him. But I don't think it's bad. I think that there's also an element here that if it was more Borat style, the more normie people that would see it may also think that it's too much of a joke. I think that the fact that he's actually kind of earnest about it and really trying to talk to these people, and they themselves sound so bad and so hypocritical on their own, that in and of itself, I think, is an achievement in my eyes. I don't know.
I also makes it less of a bit. Though. That's the problem. Is shooting fish in a barrel with these people. What you really want to do is you want to pull them over the edge so that you expose them for being as hypocritical as they actually are. The fact of the matter is, like, listen, Matt Walsh is for doing this, but he is not equipped for it. I mean, listen, he may not be a vegetarian, but he's got the body of one. Like, he's just not.
And I agree
to do this type of thing.
And that's where I was saying, like, if anything. Here's, and I'm not trying to, again, bitch on the film. I think, especially if you have a friend who is not into this kind of stuff like you, who doesn't listen to us, who doesn't really get into the, ins and outs of Hollywood and stuff, but they can't quite put their finger on this shit. Take that friend to this movie.
I agree.
Right? Like what Price was saying there. I totally 100% agree. But the difference here is I think Matt should have gotten some friends involved that are like comedians and other things. Like, if anything, he should have had a few black people involved too.
Yeah.
Not just
maybe there aren't so many people that wanted to be involved in it. I mean,
but he should have been more in the background orchestrating this shit and having people out there. Like, remember, like when Letterman would do, like, where he'd have the guys out on the streets with the earpiece in, and they just say whatever the fuck he tell them to say.
Yeah,
that stuff like that. Like, put a black guy in a position against somebody like these bitches here, and then have Matt feeding this guy whatever kind of things like this and that to do and how to act out, and see how much they put up with him being black, and then do a similar situation with Matt and see the difference. Like, things like that to show the hypocrisy, like Script said, you were good, exactly where I was coming from, to show their asses, basically, like Borat was doing to those people in some of those segments, right? But I'm going to get to this clip here because this, I think, kind of explains this is basically the whole movie in a nutshell. And these are two of the craziest bitches in the fucking world. And I use that term loosely.
Be a white woman.
These are absolutely
for many decades, and it was a miserable experience.
These people basically, so you know what's going on here. I should have set this up context, sorry. But I'm going to have to pause it a little bit here and there anyway, because I don't think Daily Wire is going to nail us, but in case they do. So basically what this is like this dinner that you pay for to listen to these two bitches basically tell you how horrible racist you are for all this time. Now if you don't know who they are, right? And this is like a not cheap either, right? So like, but this is also after Matt realized he was going to have a problem getting into a lot of this shit once people realized who he was. So now he's undercover right there as one of the waiters.
Yeah, but he's also got a camera crew in there, and that's not easy to hide.
No.
The hatred.
Well, the thing is these people, these two chicks, they set up that they're clearly used to being either videotaped all the time or whatever, something's going on around them. They've been on talk shows and all this other stuff. So to them, they're probably not questioning it too much. Probably somebody is just trying to say that they lied to him about what kind of documentary they're filming or something like
clearly
that.
one of the guests that's not Matt Walsh there has to be saying this is
That's
my
what I was
camera
thinking.
crew. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Because again, Candid Camera and all the shows like that are fake.
Yes.
No, and he does have to have everybody sign off on this shit too. So you're right. I'm sure there was some level of whatever going on here, but this is where he does like Borat type stuff, and this is where I agree with you where it kind of fails because he's just being disruptive, just like he was before, and not really actually adding anything to it until he comes in near the end here.
Hatred of yourselves and each other is like the not seeing your power, the being afraid. Like all you do is talk shit about each other, talk shit about yourself.
See, because to me, him doing this is not really adding to the progression of this whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just him just being a dork, making noise and being disruptive, kind of like he was being in the meeting, just kind of constantly disrupting the lady speaking.
Yeah, what was the point of that? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't really add anything to the whole mix.
That's all they do. I tell you, these white women.
But that's it. It's I'm so fat, I'm so stupid, I'm blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
what's the point of that? Yeah.
This is like he's trying to do a Borat thing, and it's just not working.
Yeah,
Your kids
he's
are
copying
watching
someone
you.
else's bit, but
And
doesn't
they're
understand
watching
what the bit
you
is.
talking shit about each other, raging against the machine or being silent or whatever.
So yeah, because the bit would actually be not only do you drop them on somebody or near something or on something or whatever, it's probably somebody you're working with so that you could see the reaction of everybody else at the table when this food gets dumped all over somebody, right?
No. You don't ever want to harm the audience. What you do?
No, not the audience. Somebody you're working with on the team.
Okay.
See, well, and you have them actually do a disingenuous reaction to you having that happen, and then you get that reaction of everybody around the table. I'm just using an example. I'm not saying he should do that, but I'm saying that's how that joke works usually, is how you have a situation.
It works when you actually delay the inevitable. So you would actually put him in a situation where everyone should be like, he is going to drop that. And every single instance which we think he does, he doesn't. And then the door closes, and then you hear the drop. That's the joke.
Or something like that. I agree. Yeah.
Did
Either way, you can set it up that way. Yeah.
Do you think he planned that out properly before he filmed the scene, or was he maybe just kind of winging it?
No, he planned it out rigorously. It just sucks.
Yeah.
Because they got the camera angles and everything for him.
This goes back to what Price was saying earlier about Sacha Baron Cohen. There are people who have talent for this, and there are people who don't. And if Walsh is trying to do a Borat without the proper skill set, it's going to come across as flat. Rush Limbaugh used to call it illustrating absurdity by being absurd. And there are only certain people who can pull it off unless they've done it and done it and done it and done it. It's rare that you have a natural talent for this.
You need somebody like a Dax Shepard before they get famous.
Yeah.
Because wasn't that the guy he was on Punk'd, right?
No, that there was
not Dax Shepard, the other one I was
Kennedy Experiment, but that wasn't all that good.
Isn't Dax Shepard the sensitive guy? Dax Shepard is a sensitive guy that's married to Kristen Bell or something.
Kristen Bell, yeah. What you want is actually someone from like the Monty Python team, like Eric Idle or John.
Well, I was trying to think of the actor that he used to work with on Punk'd who ended up becoming famous.
No one on Punk'd ended up becoming famous.
I could have swore.
Well, Ashton Kutcher was part of Punk'd.
He was already famous, but he had somebody else who would go in and do some of the
Seth Green?
No,
he was technically already famous because he did Buffy at that point.
No, it was Dax Shepard. I was fucking right. God damn it. I knew I was right. He was in some of the earlier episodes before he got more famous. He played like all sorts of different characters and shit for him.
But I would ask a question about this. What is the purpose of Matt Walsh disrupting them rather than letting them talk? Because surely the purpose is to let them talk.
Ideally.
And capture that.
And so was Bill Hader. That's right. Yeah. And that was my point is I'm not saying get those guys specifically. I'm saying getting people like that before they were, find some talent who people don't know who can actually play these parts and not break character. And that's where you need improv people. Right.
Well, that's been a factor.
Huge improv person. Yeah.
It's been a factor with Daily Wire in general so far, right? Is they've kind of just used themselves. And I remember that in school, one of the major kind of like mistakes that people would make when we were trying, filming films for our assignments is we'd hire each other, like our classmates, to be the roles in the film. And every once in a while, when somebody would actually like go and actually hire actors, it was a better film, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I'd like to. Daily Wire needs to do that because the same thing with Lady Ballers. They kind of just like they hired themselves. They played, they played the roles themselves, and yeah, it's fine, but
yeah,
it's very internal. It's only really going to sell to the people who are already subscribers.
All right, well, let's listen to this a little bit because people are getting antsy in the
whatever the hell it is that you're doing or not doing, and they know that you're not doing shit for them.
That's so important. That is so important what you just said. It's really important.
That's you may have to add
Oh,
he reminds me of Tom Green.
No,
that's what he reminds
to.
me of.
Okay.
Definitely not allowed.
Okay. I have my DEI certification that I got. So. Not saying I'm an expert, but I'm also not a novice. So.
See, that's what I mean. He's got like that Tom Green kind of sense of humor.
I don't mind that line. That's fine.
But Tom Green actually had jokes.
Yeah,
Tom Green actually is funny.
But it's that sense of humor where sometimes it's like he's the only one getting the joke. Or it's only funny to him. Right? Like that's what I'm getting. But I'm not trying to pick on Matt. I mean, this is one of the better bits in the movie still, but yeah.
We still never mind.
It's okay to pick on Matt.
Yeah, we know that, and water's wet. We know that. Here's the thing: I still feel like the best judgment of seeing this movie is not people like us, whether we agree or don't agree.
I agree.
It's still the casual. Hey, I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together on this. What will at least help me get a step closer? If they land with this, then clearly we know who this is meant for. If it doesn't, well, then I feel like their job absolutely failed on that regard.
Well, the fact that this is in the top 10 box office for the weekend, I think says a lot too about what kind of response it's getting.
Right. And it's true. Like, here it is here. Sarrier brings up, they didn't get any actors because nobody really wanted to help them. Yeah. They're still in that kind of area where, not many people are going to want to sign up with them yet. But I think Jason, with the point you just made, might help with their future endeavors now with stuff like this.
Considering the amount of money they invested in it, considering who they are and how they're not really looked at fondly by the mainstream media or even by a lot of people, I think that they managed to cobble together something for a low budget that is effective. And I have to appreciate it. I mean, when I go into a movie that costs, like Rise of Skywalker cost $416 million. So when I go look at a movie, I think about how $416 million were spent on one of the worst movies that I've ever seen.
41 and a half Godzilla minus ones.
Right?
And that's just on what they claim to have reported.
Right. And what I'm saying is when I go into this knowing that they put maybe $1 million, $2 million, whatever they put into this is really peanuts. They took a risk. They did something that they wanted to do, and we're not doing it. And it's important that somebody is actually shedding some light on this. I've never, sat around and given Matt Walsh compliments. I don't really listen to his stuff, and he hasn't really been my preferred. I don't really take interest in stuff like that. But with that being said, I commend the effort. You know what I mean? When I give a grade, I take into consideration that somebody had limited resources, limited people cooperating. He's not a comedian. He's not Sacha Baron Cohen. With what he has, with whatever he is, with Matt Walsh, he did the maximum that Matt Walsh could do under these circumstances, I think.
Yeah, like people are calling out, like, I don't know if there's even 10 movies we're seeing in theaters right now.
Actually, yeah, majority of stuff in theaters is over the 6-week period still. So yeah, there's not much of any competition.
No, but anyway,
that's good for them. Like, dude, that's how you make money. Go up against no competition.
Okay.
White people are starved for these conversations.
We are. We're so starving.
Yeah.
We are so starving for this.
Anyone else want to say anything?
I'll just say one thing. I'm so glad we can have these conversations, and I'll be done. But I'm just so glad that we could all get together to have these conversations. That's all I wanted to say.
Is he an actor? Are you an actor?
Oh, no.
Can you let us, we're trying to listen and trying to have this conversation.
Okay, you know, we're all acting all the time in our lives. And I think that that's part of the problem, you know? That it's like we're all trying to play a part rather than just being real and having these uncomfortable conversations. And that's what I'm always trying to tell people, especially, you know, white women. No offense, but
no, but see, like you're a white dude. There's power positions, and you know, it's pointing white people pointing fingers at each other is not helpful.
You know, I've been on this journey for so long. And
just before this, I want to say, before this clip kicked off, that chick, the one on the left here, she literally says basically that America's unsavable. Like, she thinks it should just burn.
See, this is the part where I think
about Hollywood. So
what does she think that would do to her?
She thinks she'll be
she just
safe
goes
from
off.
Does she know what it would do to her?
She thinks she'll be safe from it. That's the thing with people who think this way. They always think this stuff is incapable of it turning around on them.
They all somehow come out unscathed. Yes.
Well, because you're on the right side of history, right? You're not going to be a target because you're on that side. And they don't think the 2, 3, 4, 5 steps down the road when the first enemy is eliminated. Well, who's the next target? Who's the next target? Who's the next target?
Hold on.
There always has to be an enemy. There always has to be a bad.
They need a dragon to slay, because if they have no dragon to slay, then they have no use for them being who they are, and they need a reason for their. A lot of these people they make this a cornerstone of their personality. When you take that out, they have no personality. Then they become as literal of a NPC as it gets.
Just an observation of the scene here, but I don't think he's being convincing enough. A couple of them are definitely on to him.
Yeah.
The whole table's random except for those two at the head.
You know, it's kind of like he knows that he's being like he doesn't believe in what he's saying, which is I guess fine. But if he was a little more convincing, I think he might get further with.
And this is the same way he came off in the earlier scene where he kept just disrupting the lady who was talking or whatever. And that's kind of what I was getting at too. But speaking of disruptions, Brian has to leave us. Because
yes, indeed. Well, thank you for having me. So enjoy the rest of your.
He used to go have dinner.
I do. I'm being signaled dinner is ready.
70s.
I'm so lucky. I'm very lucky.
You are very lucky.
See you guys later. Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.
Goodbye. Bye.
All right, let's get back into this here. There's only a minute left.
People pointing fingers at each other is not helpful.
You know, I've been on this journey for so long, and just to see you guys at the table having this conversation has been really enlightening for me. Anyway, I got the DEI certification, and I'm just on the journey. All right, you ladies have a great night.
That's an awkward edit. There was more there.
He's got to lean into that more. He's got to
decolonize yourself. Do your own white supremacy dismantling, and then you can start to bring in other people.
Can I just say one last thing? Can I just propose a toast? Just raise a glass if you're racist.
He should have said what she said.
And that's the thing.
He's
not
trying
only
to sell
that,
it too hard.
She set him up for something amazing, which is like, I've been trying to decolonize my white supremacy for years. What are the first and best steps to really get started so that I can purge this horrible whiteness within me?
Exactly.
And he's not going there. He's not.
No, because he's a moron in that regard. I mean, he has no talent for it. I mean,
that's what I've been saying this whole time. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, these people, and yes, I'm using that term derogatively. These people will set you up for the best stuff to get them, hoisted by their own petard. And Matt, listen, he's got his one focus goal at hand, which is, good one, expose these people, but he doesn't know how to diversify that in order to actually really take advantage of it.
He can't improvise. He can't pivot.
No, he definitely cannot.
Because he's not, by and large, a creative person, and that's no fault of his. Like, that's just how he's wired, which is fine. It works for his commentary, works for what he does in the Daily Wire. But him wanting to be the center of attention in his own movie is not really working for the cause that he's trying to push.
Thank you. And yeah, that's what I was getting at too, is like, there's ways he could have done this. And that's where I feel like he'd have been better off taking a step back, hiring some actual comedians who work in improv who aren't like well known, who you could have come in here and, like I said, feed them some ideas and lines from time to time, to where Matt is in a more relaxed situation to where he can bring up actual statistics or facts or other things to throw at these folks. Because you're right, Script, that's what I've been talking about from the front of this whole thing, is he doesn't challenge them enough. He doesn't pull enough out of them to like get them to trip over themselves, basically, or however you want to put it, because that's what Borat was good at doing, right?
Was he always the one who was involved in this, or do we know if he tried to get other people like that involved? Do we know?
I don't know. As far as I can tell, this whole thing is from his personal perspective. Like, the whole movie's kind of set up in a weird way. Like, it is a documentary or whatever, but it's definitely wrapped around with some pre-scripted bits. If that makes sense.
I think you have expectations that are really too high from the guy, given the budget and the scope of this production. I somehow feel, and I don't know why.
I would still give it like a 3 out of like 4 stars. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a bad movie overall.
I think that it's bold. It's trying to do something that people weren't doing. It gets its point across, and I think that considering the budget and the tools and the personality and what he had to work with and what he was trying to do, I think that he accomplishes its goal. It may not be a Borat type of movie. It's not going to be like a 99 out of 100, but I think that it certainly does what it's supposed to do as a documentary. And we could be, harsh with it all we want, and I'm usually harsh. I somehow feel like this was a shoestring type of cobbling together something, and I actually applaud this effort. It's a more minor scale effort, and I appreciate it.
I agree, but I almost feel like it should be the first in a series. Like, he should continue to take it to more.
Maybe he'll improve. Maybe these experiences that he's having will cause him to step up and improve future productions. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But you know what? He's doing his thing. It's more than what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
And that's what I was saying about this being you baby steps, spoon feeding people. This is the first part of it, where people get exposed to this for the first time. Maybe there is a part 2 that's in the works that takes it to like what Tom's saying. Now we get into the more confrontational stuff. The problem with what I'm seeing here, just in this scene, Matt can't get out of his own way.
No, but the thing that you're suggesting, Jason, is really, it's called what the first act is. That's how you ease people into this. If this movie has been stretched out to be one long first act, that's a waste of time for everybody. You don't really need to go there.
That's my other problem, is it meanders a lot. Yeah.
I think that's how I would approach it, though, is like, he's kind of approaching it from what I've seen as being, he already has the certification, he's leading a class. But what if he's just a normal person who has no idea what DEI is, and he plays that role and he truly gets himself into it?
That's pretty much how he plays the movie in the movie, basically.
But does it have an arc where he's discovering it and going down that rabbit hole slowly?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so that would be effective.
So like, that's kind of part of it, but like, that's what I'm saying, is like, it does have like a pre-built in scripted narrative there, and it does kind of pay off in the end to a point. He does kind of go off on this little soliloquy that is kind of basically a lot of the same shit that we've all said a million times over. So that's not another reason why it maybe just didn't blow me away or anything like that.
We may not be the target audience for it, but I don't think it's a bad
what I keep getting at is like, I keep saying, this is a movie that people like us take our friends who don't know this shit, who aren't into this shit, who aren't following this shit. That's who you take to. People who need a wake-up call. I agree on that respect. I totally agree.
I saw it working. So, I saw that somebody was looking at it and were like, wow, I didn't know all of this. And that's
my
it. Once you do that, it works.
That I was just trying to get to is like, it almost feels half-baked or undercooked. That's, I guess, the main, and that's where I agree with Script. Like, what he does in this entire movie should have just been the first act. It could have been compressed. It almost feels like he just didn't have enough stuff, and he's stretching this movie out in some places. Because here's what my idea is probably what happened. Whatever money they made off of What Is a Woman, they threw into this right away, and under the auspice of, okay, we just got really, because they did get a lot of headlines written and a lot of attention off of that film, right? And I think that was the impetus of this, is like, oh, so what do we do as a follow-up to it? What is the next thing? Well, and this is working better because of the reasons I said before, because the I Am a Woman thing, or What Is a Woman thing, was a little bit tougher, and the problem with the women thing is the women, right? It's not the men. That's the thing. It's women have to stop accepting this bullshit and stand up and say enough's enough. And we can't do anything about that. But in this respect, the am I a racist thing, this is much more approachable, right? Because this is something that I think most people have already said to themselves, like, no, I'm not racist, but yet everybody's telling me I am. Yeah. And I've never even thought like this, nor do I ever had an inkling to think like that, right?
And
like,
well, here's the other problem with this is that you only get one shot at these types of things. Now that this has been hit theaters, now that articles are moving about it, everyone is going to be on guard for Matt Walsh or someone like him. So when you do this type of thing, you better not miss. And I would say here he grazed. That's basically it.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but yeah.
I feel like it's a little too soon to go. I feel like that's the type of thing that time will be the ultimate judge of that. I mean, if I'd say 5 years, and yeah, nothing pans out ever, I'd say it's a fair argument. But if he can ignite more conversation in a few other of these types of movies, whether they're good or not, I mean, once again, as long as he's reached out to normies.
But the other part too is that the DEI stuff has already been in regression for the last year and a half. So he's coming in way
some
too
are
late.
still just repackaging it. So
they're trying to. It's just not working very well.
I think the other thing too, to your point, Script, I think if you have people with the talent and the skill, even if you're on your guard watching for it, there are still going to be times when people can get caught. And you can still have those gotchas. Yeah. And, there are probably, I'm saying they're more than likely people who have better skills and talent than Matt Walsh to do this kind of thing. I mean, how many years did Candid Camera run? And people are like, hey, am I on Candid Camera? It's a joke, but there are still people who got caught, years and years into the show. So I think there's still room for this kind of thing as far as the undercover stuff and the sneaky factor.
But he's going to have to go at it the way I was saying, though, and hire some actors. If he's
it doesn't. I'm not saying necessarily him. I'm just saying anybody who gets into this position, they want to.
And I already got a title. If anybody from Daily Wire is actually listening right now, you just call it "Am I Still Racist?" See that?
Well,
that's good.
And that goes to the other point that I hinted at earlier, because there is now this project especially has contributed to it, but I've seen over the last, over the weekend, the last few days, online social chatter talking about, conservatives can't do art. This has come up again because of this. Mm-hmm. And you look back at, some of the more recent things that have come out as, faith-based or conservative. You have Am I a Racist? You have Terror on the Prairie. You have Run, Hide, Fight, which are not necessarily, Sound of Freedom, God's Not Dead, Let There Be Light. I mean, some of them are still in that vein of, the preaching to the choir kind of message-ish, Hallmark type thing. But I think conservatives are getting better. But I also saw somebody make the point, conservatives, we're not always talking about how conservatives do art, because it's not conservative political art. It's just, we're going to make art. It's not inherently conservative the way that when liberals make something or progressives make something, they want it to be about.
Well, I'll make a great example. I'll make a great example of what I would consider conservative art right now that is actually very popular that most people overlook. And I know I'm going to make Script Doctor whinge a little bit, but Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You have a huge property.
Yeah.
Where it is a very conservative bent. And not only that, one of the main characters, that's the whole, one of the kind of the main running jokes of whatever it was, the third or fourth season when he met up with that hippie chick. Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's a show right now, I think, that also kind of helped get people back around to, there is a place for standard American values or traditional values, whatever you want to put it, in the homes still to this day, because that's what a lot of people still fucking want. They want to watch Little House on the Prairie. They want to watch Yellowstone. They want to watch.
Well, Yellowstone doesn't have family values in it at all.
No, but I mean, it's still like a show that leans into it's a type of show that we used to have like back in the day, though. That
Dallas.
was my point.
Yeah.
Dallas, shit like that.
It's not driven by conservatism. It's driven by basically self-preservation. So that's different.
Well, it's mass appeal. It's how many people can we get to watch our show? Not how many blue hair people will watch our show because they feel seen. We are creating a product whether it's a TV show or a movie or a book or a widget or a comic book or computer or whatnot. And instead of us sitting there saying, it's not made for you, they're saying it's made for anybody who wants to enjoy it. And that's the way you approach this kind of thing. And I saw a trailer today from Netflix. So they're doing a kind of a play on Yellowstone, something called Territory, which is kind of an Australian.
Somebody's told me about that. Yeah.
The guy who played Longmire is in it. And it's the weirdest thing to hear him talking with an Australian accent after watching him in Longmire for 5 years. I was like, it doesn't sound right.
Well, we'll finish this clip real
I'm
quick.
not racist. Let me
Yeah,
just
this is in the trailer, though, so I just figured we might as well finish it. In case people are curious what was left. Yeah, that was it. So there you go. But anyway, you were saying, Jason, yeah.
No, I think the pendulum has started to swing back. It's more gradual than some of us would like for it to be, because we're sitting there, we've been paying attention to this, and we're kicking and screaming. It's like, why doesn't anybody understand just how messed up all of this stuff is? And then it takes something like this to start opening eyes for people who are just now catching up. Yes, DEI is on the outs because of how much money that it's cost.
Hopefully.
But like Nick said earlier, it's getting repackaged. You know, World Economic Forum, BlackRock, all these guys, they're starting to morph it and remold it and call it something else. So DEI is not here anymore, but we're sneaking it in under this other name. So it's still going to be a problem. So people have to.
But it makes me wonder where it's going to be, because I don't know if it's necessarily going to be in Hollywood per se, because we're going to get to that here in just a moment.
Maybe not.
It's not, because EDI is the other version, and then Bridge is the other one. Enough people have already seen through it, because all they have to do is look at, well, what is it? And it's like, oh, this follows all the things of this. We're not doing it. I'm working for a company right now in the arts and also in industry. And basically we're like, we're not doing any DEI stuff. And we're also thinking about just completely getting rid of the entire human resources department.
Oh,
well, and if they really want to put their money where their mouth is, they need to go to the industries and places where there is less women and people of color, or whatever you want to call it. I hate even using that term.
I'd never use that term, but
I normally don't either.
That
my
term,
point
it legitimizes their language.
I know.
I like to
but
use
to be
the term,
ironic,
I
want to
use
say
the term non-white.
Anyway, yeah, to make my point, though, like, yeah, I just want to see them do that so they can just realize that nobody wants those jobs, right? Like, that's why there isn't any black people or women in there or whatever it is their problem is with this job area, because so-and-so people are the only people that want to work that job.
Well, it's like when James Damore, when James Damore got in trouble at Google for being in those forums, and he says, it's all nice and well and good to try to attract more women into the IT space, but they're not interested in doing it. And he got pilloried.
Yeah.
Over that kind of thing.
Or you have the other thing, like what Script just said, and that's a good point. If you want to be so DEI, whatever, well then I think we need to go the opposite direction too. What about in sports?
I need more.
There's an overwhelming amount of where there's outside of golf, there's not a big and golf and tennis is like the only place where there's any white people left.
Well, and that's the next space. That's the space where we're having the discussions now, right? Is the transgender people in the women's sports? Maybe that's the next "Am I Racist?" project.
Well, and I brought that up earlier.
Am I transphobic?
That's kind of what "Am I a Woman?" or "What is a Woman?" Sorry, not "Am I a Woman?"
Yeah.
I keep saying that now.
Yeah,
that's what is a woman kind of was sort of supposed to be about, and I never saw it, but that was kind of part of the point. Was it was trying to answer that question of, is it really silly, I guess, to ask that question? Of course it's the sports thing, and that was the whole point I was bringing up. Is unfortunately for us men and in general, not just white men in general, we can't really do anything about it. Women have to, right? Like, that's the sad part, is we can sit here and bitch about it all day long, and we can look down at guys who do that kind of thing. Because, we'll be the first ones to admit that, the reason they're doing it is because they couldn't make it in men's sports. That's why.
Right.
So we know that, and we can say that all day long, but we're not women. And there is still a few places and a few things where there's just things we can't say or do, and can't change it until they do. Look at what's happening to, like, J.K. Rowling. You need more women to stand up and say something, or that's going to continue to happen. But when you have that shit happening to somebody as big and powerful and liked as J.K. Rowling,
it scares a lot of people. Yeah,
it scares a lot of fucking people.
I
exactly.
Hope with what's going on with the conversation going on with Am I Racist? And I know this is something they were trying to do Lady Ballers, and that could also be a reason why the movie also failed so spectacularly as it did, on top of it just being the right-wing version of the message. I do recall the Daily Wire did say they were actually trying to get, some Hollywood personality in there, but a lot of them were afraid to do a movie like that. Hopefully, with Am I Racist getting the enormous attention that Lady Ballers failed miserably to do, hopefully maybe someone or two will come forward and be, hey, I see what you got going on here. I see where this could be better. Let me join you guys, and I'll find a way to amplify your idea while still trying to simultaneously reach out to the normies with this. And it could be someone who's center left. That doesn't really matter. Just someone who gets what they're trying to do and just trying to make it more effective. Hopefully they'll be shown that, hey, look, there are alternatives to do. Also show them too that they have another path of hopefully having a job as well, because that's another thing too, is a lot of people, within these industries, some people are just not even political at all. We forget that a lot, and that's including me. There's a lot of people who are just really in the very super center in the middle who want nothing to do with it. They'll maybe vote and then move on to life, forget that they even ever did it. But they also want to hold on to their jobs. Some people have better reasons than others, but at the end of the day, if they can find something that can replace that, maybe that'll get a few people to welcome to this company, because clearly Daily Wire has some money and they're up in their budget. They're now getting to theatrical releases. This could open some doors. Maybe that's the more optimistic side of me speaking, but I do think this could open some doors, and hopefully maybe Matt Walsh could actually win me over one of these things. He has yet to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my personal feelings against him into it, but I will give credit where it's due, even to him.
I think
I think he improved his image in my eyes when I saw the movie. I thought that he's making an effort. He's not a comedian. He's just some dude, that does commentary. It's not, he's really punching above his belt, and the movie still does what it's supposed to do.
Well, I think the other thing too is not only do we need to have more women speaking out that are not political type, people like Riley Gaines, for example, but also there needs to be somebody besides Daily Wire doing it.
Yes, I agree.
Daily Wire is fine, and they can do their thing, and they've got their space. But just from things that Gina Carano said in her interview with Sean Ryan, Daily Wire doesn't have all of the answers either. And some of the things
they're one of the few ones that have the money, so they're at least trying to work within the confines of what they have.
No, but I agree with what Jason's saying. And it's especially going to be for the other side, right? Like for the general public, this might help a little bit, might wake some folks up. But as far as the actual woke crowd and the left and all that kind of business, the alt left, as I like to call them too,
they left us all away.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Somebody like Michael Moore or somebody like that, or Bill Maher is going to have to make a documentary about, have we taken woke too far? Then maybe they'll start to go, okay, maybe we have. Because until you have something like that, somebody on their actual side saying we need to wake up and knock this shit off, then
I think we're seeing some cracks in that, because
but he keeps taking 2 steps back. That's the problem.
I mean, he likes to dance around it a little bit. But I was really surprised when Michael Moore came out and said positive things about Trump after the first assassination attempt, where he basically, and Zuckerberg did the same thing. He's orange man bad, but I got to give him props for being tough. We're starting to see. And I have to wonder if the left, in a general sense, is starting to realize just how far they've gone to Crazy Town, and realizing we've lost the plot. We've got to get it back.
Well, it's actually the Fringe that's lost the plot, but the Fringe is the one that's doing all the talking. That's the problem,
right?
Because and this is an issue that has been going on for decades. Like, remember when Jon Stewart did that whole thing at the Mall of Washington, and basically he was saying the center left and the left, they're too busy to actually get involved in stuff, so they stay quiet.
Yeah.
And then someone said, hey, you know what? Maybe if the left did something like the Tea Party, that'd actually get going. And guess what? That appealed to the crazy people. The regular left hasn't done shit. Pardon my language. It's just the extremes. They've taken over the party, which is, again, how the Tea Party was viewed as being when they were being funded secretly by the Koch brothers, who, again, way more wealthy than George Soros, like infinitely more wealthy than George Soros. And they were taking the Republican Party in a direction that didn't work. When Trump came in, he kind of centered that back a little bit more and got people back on line. We don't have anything like that on the left, except for maybe RFK Jr. But even then, he's got his own things going on that they don't like about him. But Bill Maher and Michael Moore are kind of like Hollywood barometers. So if you see what they're saying, that's probably going to be the majority of what that industry is thinking, but they won't all say it out loud because they don't have the security that those two individuals have made for themselves over the years.
Yeah. Well,
Script,
and I'm wondering,
I can't believe you swore. I almost feel like I need to go back and do adulting. I think that's the first time I heard you swear. I almost didn't believe it.
I rarely do. Yeah, because
that was weird. It almost was kind of awkward for me.
Well, and I think you're to Script's point about RFK. I think the political landscape would look a lot different now if somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard had won the nomination in 2020.
Yeah,
and not the placement candidate that we got. And in Hollywood, there needs to be some of that too. There needs to be a George Clooney type, or I don't know who else is out there with that kind of. If you know what we need Angelina Jolie and Jon Voight to host a coffee clatch and get everybody together to do a kumbaya thing and say, you know what, we might not agree on everything, but we're all still Americans and we want to kind of pull.
You'll never get those two in the same fucking room.
No, but
no, but I get what you're saying. I agree with the sentiment, right? Like whether it's like James Woods and fucking who cares? I don't know. Insert whoever, Bill Maher, whoever here.
Actually,
right?
you could get Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. They're two guys on the opposite side of the political spectrum of the best friends.
You could do that. You could do that.
Well, I agree, but I don't know if Carpenter. I agree, but I don't know if Carpenter has enough pull in that community. You need somebody.
He doesn't really have enough pull.
You could get somebody like a Rob Schneider. And it doesn't even have to be top tier actors. Just
I agree with Kurt Russell as a better choice, but
crack the wall a little bit. Just get somebody in there who's willing to have that conversation on the Hollywood side of things.
It's unfortunate that Val Kilmer has lost his voice because he and Kurt Russell are actually really good friends, and they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, here's the other part too. Like Hollywood actually has been trying to combat the wokeness for at least the last 5 years. But again, the powers that be just don't want to do it. There's actually a screenplay circling around called Social Justice Warrior. And the joke was that a liberal arts professor was being accused as not being as being racist by a white freshman student who was upset that her friend, who happened to be of a different ethnicity, was being called was not being identified as such. And then the whole point of the script is that both of them are competing to see who is the wokest, and they both implode, and actually showcases how ridiculous this ideology was. It actually got a lot of buzz, but nobody
I remember you telling me about that.
That sounds like a Blacklist script.
Yeah, it was definitely a Blacklist script. I think it was it came out in like 2020, I think.
I was gonna say, I remember you saying something about like 2-3 years ago. Yeah. Mikey's in the house. He should be on the panel. He's been a member for 40 freaking months. You know what? I think that earned a puppy. We're going to do a minimum effort puppy in for you just in a moment here. But he says, bravo to Price. I'm now launching Latinx DEI Consulting as my first act. I'm seizing all of the panel's assets as reparations to pay for my golf member dues. You don't pay golf, do you really? Yeah, you started playing golf, didn't you? Boat dock fees and caviar, except Price.
I believe the boat dock fees and caviar.
You know how much money I have, which is none.
You'll notice he's not paying for any YouTuber gear yet.
So nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
I tried going to the driving range once, and I swung the club, and the golf ball went sideways and hit the person next to me.
Ouch.
What's gonna be funny is if I ever get out there to Mikey, I'm gonna make him take me out on the golf course. And it is going to be like Rodney Dangerfield on the golf course. You watch. Hey, everybody, we're going to get laid.
Like,
4.
Can we play through?
I should have said 2.
That's another place where I think you could have that conversation because Dave Chappelle has done a little bit of that, but we need more of that too. We need another George Carlin. We need another Sam Kinison. We need another Andrew Dice Clay. People who start poking the bear at this stuff and say, we need to make fun of ourselves more.
Yeah,
a little bit. I agree. I mean, I don't know.
A whole lot more.
I love Carlin, and I call him St. George. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to hold him up on some pedestal like he would be like some voice for the conservative right or anything like that.
Oh, no. I'm just saying,
because you got to remember, he was a goddamn hippie,
willing,
right? Like, so,
right? Yeah, but somebody who's
I love
willing
him,
to,
but
yeah, but somebody who's willing to say the thing out loud, kind of like what Ricky Gervais did at the awards a couple of 2-3 years ago.
The only things I think that he definitely would have probably agreed with us on is he probably wouldn't have been for the jab because he was very anti big pharma.
Yep.
He definitely wouldn't be on board with any of this like censoring of any kind of fucking speech shit.
Nope.
But I still think he would be on the side of we can't let. I don't think he would like Donald Trump. I think he would have major TDS.
Well, he doesn't even have to like.
I don't know if he had major TDS, but I think he would go as hard against Trump as he would against Biden.
Possibly. I mean,
I don't even see him going against Biden. I mean, that would be great if that were true. Obviously, we'll never know. I just think he would just not say anything.
No, because George Carlin, he may be like, the old school hippie liberal, but he hates liars more than anything.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden is notorious for that.
And I swear he had said someplace before he passed that when something had come up with Trump at one point, he didn't have very nice things to say about Trump. So that's where I think.
No, because that's just a New Yorker thing, though.
Yeah, and that's fine. At least
that's different.
See, I at least like with like a guy like Bill Maher, obviously he's a lefty. He at least has been, for the most part, as far as how he feels on Donald Trump, he's been consistent on that because he's always not been a fan of it. That wasn't just because he decided to run for the White House and now he needs to jump on the ship. Him and Trump have always had issues, and I tell you, he has people consistently on his shows who are not like him, whether it's Roseanne or Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, but then
he at least has those people on, and also he doesn't like the woke stuff, and he, obviously, him and I have very opposite stances on certain things, but he'll still say, hey, not everyone who is not like me politically is crazy. It's not fair to lump them all like that.
I like giving Bill credit when credit's due, but I don't want to give him too much credit because there's times he does stupid shit. Like this last week, I just commented on him talking about, the whole thing with Biden putting on the Trump hat. Well, it turns out basically it was like he was trading with a Trump person in the audience, and they were like, how, sometimes rival teams will trade a jersey or something after a championship game, and I even posted, I'm like, this is the problem, Bill. Right? We need some sportsmanship right now. We need some getting along. We need some healing. We need some people to say, look, it is okay. Right? Like that is part of the problem. Is you have so many people who are so deathly afraid of both sides of the equation right now that it is just ridiculous. And if you're going to sit there and make fun of any kind of repairment that isn't disingenuous, where that would actually be one moment where I'd like, you know what? That wasn't a bad thing. That was kind of a nice thing for Biden to do. Right.
I will say that was actually that was a funny move that Joe did. I'll give credit where it's due.
Nothing wrong with that.
That will come off as unpopular, especially anyone who knows me knows my disdain for him. However, I thought that was a smart move to do. He didn't go give fishes at the guy. He didn't do some prepared comeback speech. He went with the joke, put on the hat, and obviously he was around guys who he knew would probably not vote for him ever, but he had fun with it. It seems like the guys were in on it too. It didn't feel scripted. It felt like the closest thing to a genuine moment that I've seen him ever be involved in.
It's just so silly, and that's the kind of rhetoric that got us here in the first place, is because so many people have such a hatred for one individual, right? And they can't understand why anybody would actually want to. Well, and I do more so than ever, but
anyway. We're 9 years into Justin Castro up here, and we have no laws that would stop him from going.
You
for
better
the
be
rest of his
careful
life.
what you say, motherfucker. He'll come after you in the woods.
No, he's afraid of trees.
That's
He'll
true.
Pop out of your RV.
He'll send somebody though. ActionCom sends in $2. Thank you so much, ActionCom. Says, anyone see Marjo 1973? I never heard
That's
of
the
Marjo.
Invalidist documentary, right?
Oh, is that what it is?
I think so. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Action Con always knows how to pull out some obscure stuff that's relevant to the topic at hand.
I have never heard of it. Let me see. Marjo.
Pretty sure that's an evangelical one.
Documentary, One Child Evangelist,
yeah.
Faith Healer, Marjo Gottner. Okay. No, I've never heard of this one before. Okay, so there's got to be some reason he sent it to us.
It's a documentary about indoctrination, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Not in high school.
Yeah. I'm reading up on it here. Okay, it was about a kid. Okay. Yeah. All right. I kind of vaguely remember this kid now, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen this documentary, though, obviously, but... Okay. Interesting. Evangelists used to manipulate people to move them during revivals. Some of the evangelists can even reveal that they... Okay, so it's basically blowing the lid off of that kind of shit. Yeah. And how they studied people like lead singers and stuff like that. All right, cool. All right, I could see that. All right, maybe I'll have to check that out if I get a chance. Then we got Samuel Maine sending us in a super sticker. Thank you for that, Samuel. Let's see what that is. It is... Okay. It is a little pear guy. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, hit the thumbs up, just like Samuel Maine, who's been here for 4 months as a member. And hopefully you've enjoyed the member perks like the commentaries and other things that are happening when they do. ActionCom sends in another 5 and says, I lost a lot of respect for George Carlin when I saw an interview where he told Andrew Dice Clay that he should not make jokes that punch down.
Well, that's because Dice Clay was better than that, and Carlin knew it.
I was going to say, yeah, for the most part, yes, as a comedian, you should never punch down. Like, that's kind of the point. You're the jester. You're supposed to be punching up.
Yeah.
Right?
You're supposed to be bringing truth in the veneer of comedy. Like, the court jester is the only one that can mock the king and not be executed. And there's a reason for that.
I mean, it depends on the context of what jokes he was talking about that Clay was making. I don't know offhand, but
I think it was that remember that period of Clay, like between like 93 and 95, when nobody would show up to his shows because his material was kind of like pittering out. I think that's when that interview happened.
Could have been. I have no idea. Yeah,
because he did a movie in like the late 80s, early 90s that was not really well received. And it was basically because he was playing like a Mary Sue of sorts.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Something a love story. I'm trying to remember what the hell it was called.
Yeah.
Oh, or are you talking about Ford Fairlane? That actually was popular.
Yeah.
Well, Ford Fairlane did well. It was his one after that bombed. It was trying to remember the hell it was called. It's like Maniac, a love story or something like that, but that's not what it's called. It's something else. But anyway, no, Ford Fairlane actually has a cult following now. That came out
but didn't it like completely like drop off after its second week in the box office?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I know it has a cult following now, so regardless. Yeah. But no, I do know there was an era where he fell out. Like, he also was going to get a show in Fox and all that fell apart and shit too, or something like that. Brain Smasher. That's it. Thank you, Aaron. I couldn't think. Like, goddamn, what is it? Yeah, that was a horrible movie. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, Dice, though, was kind of dicey for a while there. Pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Deeple 101 sends in 2 and says, Hail panel in chat, finished where Eagles dare A+. There you go. And I think somebody sent that one to me, if I'm not mistaken. John, unless I'm thinking of another film. John Cream sends in $5 and says, anybody checking out Transformers 1 this weekend looks to have good reviews, but seems like a quiet box office. Yeah, this is a kids movie that's being released.
I saw it
in school, and I was just going to segue to that price. I was going to say, you have seen it. As far as I know, I don't think anybody else has on the panel. So what did you think?
I don't know if anybody else in the world... No, somebody else has because it came out today, but I saw it actually yesterday.
And your thoughts?
I'll tell you what. I had a lot of concerns going into the movie, and for the first maybe 30 minutes of this movie, all of my concerns were, came true, or whatever you want to call it. All of my suspicions came true. But I will say that as the movie progressed, I actually thought that it was better than I thought it would be. And by the end of it, There are certain choices that I would have made differently, and I'm an OG. I like the original animated series, but I don't think that this is a mutant mayhem situation. I think that there's some kind of story that's being told here, and it's not that kind of disaster. And when I think parents with kids and stuff like that, it's all right, except there's two things that if I had to say that I don't like. One of them is that there's Alita, played by voiced by Scarlett Johansson. She is a girl boss. Girl boss off the charts. The only thing is, she's not in every scene. When you don't see her, it's fine. But I would have deleted her from the movie. I don't even think she does anything worthwhile in this movie. You could have just deleted her character. And Scarlett Johansson has like a pleasant voice. Why would they make her so annoying? They really had to go out of their way for it, in my opinion. The other thing is. Sorry,
probably no. I'll say it's really quick, Price. I think this was definitely being made while DEI was in full swing, especially since the way you mentioned it sounded like her power was so effective that if you had taken her out, that she would have not affected the movie. Then that's clearly DEI in a nutshell. Where you have to throw a girl in, even though it's really centered around two guys, but you gotta throw the female part because they need to feel seen too. That's what that scene's like, even though the movie seems to really revolve around Optimus and Megatron.
Totally. So I agree with you. I think probably when they conceived it, they were still in a girl boss mode. I don't know how it'll affect the future. I really thought that they failed with that character. The other thing is that Bumblebee is sort of like an idiot, which I understand that they wanted him to be comic relief, and that's fine. I just feel like in parts they make him like a bit more of an idiot than I would have made him. It's not the end of the world idiot, but it's that kind of goofy. There's something about it that I don't prefer. With that being said, I think that when it comes to Optimus Prime and Megatron, they did pretty good work. And even though it's not Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, which I prefer, I mean, these guys that they chose to do it, Chris Hemsworth and that other guy, they're all right. They're not terrible. And the story arc between the two guys, the two main characters, I think that they get some things right here. It's not a perfect movie, but I didn't hate it. I sat there and it's for whatever it is. It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't a mutant mayhem Ninja Turtle situation.
What a ringing endorsement, Price. And that still just makes me feel like I should just stick to my current, keyword current, because that's a word that scares a lot of people, the current Transformers comic, which for the last year has been fan-freaking-tastic. So, folks, if you have a Transformers itch, you're like a freaking scab that you can't stop itching at, read the comic. If you don't read comics but you love Transformers, you'll have a great time. I swear a lot of vulgarities on that. Carry on.
And read Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah. I'm done with my analysis of it. I think that's a good
That's his best in life. No, I actually want to get to this last story here before we do lose you, Price, because I know you got to go soon.
Okay.
So who's going to replace Bob Iger? We got a write-up in Variety today. Here's where the Disney CEO candidates stand. The hottest roller coaster at Disney. Let me make this bigger here, so I don't stumble through it all so badly. The hottest roller coaster at Disney is once again the ride that ends with Bob Iger announcing his replacement. Succession drama has engulfed Disney for the better part of a decade. The questions around who will fill the shoes of the entertainment giant's mythical CEO have grown louder in recent weeks. In late August, Disney announced that board member James P. Gorman would lead the planning committee tasked with orchestrating the handoff of power between Iger and his heir. Gorman is the executive chairman of Morgan Stanley and has experience as an architect of corporate dynasties. Jesus. Mikey, why aren't you in here? Get in here. Roughly 2 weeks after Gorman was tapped, the New York Times published an impressive account of implosion of Bob Chapek, who was elevated to CEO in 2020 after Iger retired the first time, only to be ousted by the board less than 2 years later. Chapek's saga is a lesson in dire consequences of botching the process and an urgent reminder that Disney can't afford to mess this up again. And we also learned. Go ahead.
Question. Is that making reference to the New York Times hit piece that came out a couple of weeks ago about how Bob Iger sabotaged Bob Chapek?
I believe so.
Or is this the CNBC piece?
This is the Palace coup at the Magic Kingdom piece in the New York Times.
Okay, so that's the hit piece on Iger. That's a very interesting way of characterizing that article. because that's not what that article is about.
Okay, well, that being said, yeah, like what I was going to say is we're also learning. Yeah, no, I was going another direction with something completely different here. That's why I was like off topic for a second. That's not a problem. But we now are basically learning that Inside Out 2 is another production that was under Chapek's regime too. It sounds like, and that's probably where they were told to get the gay out of there. I'm assuming because that all went down at the same time as the "Don't Say Gay" shit. Anyway, that being said, moving on. I just wanted to give Chapek another point. Considering the 2 biggest hits Disney's had this year, I think he's responsible for, is my point. Or responsible for green lighting. To be fair, the waters have been calmer lately after box office slump. Disney is raking in cash at movie theaters again, having launched a buzzy shows like Shogun and Abbott Elementary across Disney-owned brands like ABC, Hulu, FX, and Disney+. The company took home record-breaking 60 Emmys on Sunday. There are still problems to resolve. Inflation is taking a toll across company themes parks, but Iger's return has inspired a greater sense of stability and improved morale. Has it? I mean, really? Second Iger era won't last forever, given this current contract expires at the end of 2026. That's left a small collection of top Disney executives jockeying for his crown. So who's best positioned to win this Game of Thrones?
I thought it was 2031.
He's going to stay on as a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets to keep the office for 5 more years, right?
Well, you got to take 2 showers a day.
Yeah.
So one person we do know it's not going to be is Jennifer Lee. We found out today got a demotion. Now, you guys may not know the name, but you know her work. She took over, I think it was Pixar, wasn't it? One of the people?
Disney Animation.
Yeah.
Disney Animation, yeah. And then now she's been demoted back down to a director. She hasn't been fired, but yeah. Or not even, I don't know if she's directing, to be honest with you.
She's concentrating now on Frozen 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's it. She's just basically been turned into a producer now, basically.
She was Amy Pascal.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. Thank you.
That is a very good way of putting it.
So, okay, we got number 1, and this is the person I've been saying for a while, will probably be Dana Walden. No surprise there. We're not going to get too deep into these people. We kind of know these names already if you've been around. Then there's Josh D'Armo, another name we've heard quite a bit. Anyone beyond Dana or Josh is probably a stretch. I agree with that probably at this point, because Iger's not going to let anybody take over and let a Chapek situation happen again. He's going to make sure whoever gets put in is somebody he approves of.
Yes,
so
and they'll be sworn in after he dies.
So basically just maintain the status quo.
Yeah, of course. The fact of the matter is, with those 2 possible candidates, are they clever enough to put up the ruse and say that they're going to maintain the status quo long enough for Bob Iger to literally shuffle off and no longer have any influence over Disney so that they can do what they want to do?
Well, here's my question, because after reading that New York Times piece, that I'm wondering who put that out there, who arranged for that to be there, because it does not put Bob Iger into good light at all. And my suspicion, and other people are suspecting, that Dana Walden was the one who made that article happen. And what does that do to her chances of being the successor? Because if it's true that she coordinated with New York Times to put that out there, then she's just become Bob Iger's enemy. Yeah. And maybe she's going scorched earth because she's got something else lined up.
Or there's another plausibility, unless I'm completely wrong on this, which I could be. And that is, she knows she's got the board's support, and that whole hit piece was put out there to try and push him along and move him along.
Not a guarantee. Chapek had the board support when they renewed.
No, I agree with you. That's the problem. Yeah.
Your contract.
Yeah. And that's where I said he's going to make sure whoever he puts in place is going to be his little lackey. So it might be D'Armo just because of that. I don't know. But that's kind of what the basis of this story is. Let me see if there's any more possibilities they bring up here. No,
Let's go with the ESPN guy.
Yeah, let's go with the ESPN guy.
I mean,
so there you go, kids.
What was it? Second quarter, first quarter, where it was all that earnings call was all about ESPN and everything was all about sports. Yeah, I think that's one of the few things that Disney's got that's actually making money right now, isn't it? So maybe we do put the ESPN guy in charge.
But I mean, he didn't really do anything to make ESPN make money. ESPN already was making money. You need a fixer, and unfortunately, there's no one at Disney that can do that job. And a lot of the people that are outside of Disney that would do it would never be able to last as long as Chapek did.
Yeah, well, and replacing the CEO is only one step. You've got to completely clean house at the board level as well, because you have to have a board of directors that recognizes that the CEO has to answer to them, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And right now you don't have that situation. You have a lot of people that are going to rubber stamp whatever Bob Iger wants. And that's not how you run a major corporation like that. It's not even how you run a nonprofit. The board of directors decides the direction is going to go. Here's our agenda. And your corporate officers are the ones to make it happen. Right now, you've got the cart before the horse in terms of who's running things over at Disney, and they're not going to make money as long as that's the case.
No. I mean, that's the fact. That's the brilliance of what Bob Iger did. He knew that he would have to answer the board, but if he replaced the board, and remember, when you're a board director, you get paid essentially to kind of do nothing. Overall,
yeah,
you're delegating things that have already been discussed at a table, and other people are doing it on your behalf. But you're not doing anything; it's a free paycheck. So he knows he's able to hold that over the people that he's selected as board members, and he will continue to do that so long as he's alive and so long as they're in that position. But ideally, I mean, whenever you get a new head of a studio, their first job is technically always cleaning house because they want to shape the company into their own image. And Disney has not had that since Iger has gotten into power. And Disney most likely will not have that so long as Iger is still alive and able to influence over the board afterwards. So, as I said before, he's going to stick with Disney until he dies. And then when he dies, his successor will take over. And only then will Disney change.
Well, I don't mean to be rude and interrupt here, but I know Price is leaving us. So I want to give him a minute to give his thoughts on this and then plug his stuff because he's got to run here. I know he's running out of time.
I think that Bob Iger ain't going anywhere. He doesn't care about anything, and he's going to sit there, and there's going to be a lot more trouble with him.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think we've seen the last of Bob yet.
They're going to have to take him out of there. You know those kind of when they take somebody into an institution in that straitjacket? Is that what they're going to have to do? Like to roll him out of there?
Drag him out kicking and screaming, basically, yeah.
That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way it seems to me.
Well, there's still a possibility that he could decide to pursue a political career. I mean,
that could happen. Yeah,
that could still happen despite the situation that he's in right now. But I don't know that he's going to die in office.
Basically, if Kamala loses this time out, I bet you the chances of him go up astronomically of running next time out.
Yeah, I can see 4 more years of him at Disney.
Because if Kamala wins, then his chances are over for the next decade.
Except for the fact that Dana Walden is chums with Kamala, and we've got that whole ABC thing as part of.
And that's where I was saying, don't overlook that maybe Bob's power's slipping away from him a little bit, and Dana and that's where I could see that scenario being a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're not wrong with that's exactly what they said about Chapek too, but at some point here, Bob's gonna end up losing the trust of the board, right? Yeah. It's inevitable.
He has to.
Yeah, I mean, when you've had as many misses as they've had, that's just the way it is. But I know, Price, you have to leave us now, but go ahead and plug. Do you have one of your shows? You got your Quantum Leap show tonight.
On my live channel, there's Quantum Leap Revisited at 10 p.m. and then the Night Owl at 11:45 p.m. So, and that's also on my live channel. So I guess anybody that feels like checking that out later, you're all invited.
Cool.
All right. So check that out later on and take care of yourself, Price. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, man. I'll see you later. Bye.
See ya. So yeah, as we were saying, guys, I didn't mean to disrupt the flow there. I just know he had to take off. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Jason. Like, makes me start to wonder how much Game of Thrones is going on behind the scenes right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it before, and we know there was some, and we're beginning, as we come along here, a lot of the stuff that Andre and I and others have reported, WW Pro and others about stuff that was going on behind the scenes with Chapek turned out to be true for the most part, from what I can tell so far. I mean, there's still bits and pieces we may not have gotten out yet, but in some cases, it's even more hilarious and than we could have imagined. I mean, who'd have thought about the 2 showers, the hippo, the Iger sanction? Like,
yeah. Well, and I think the other aspect of it is I've really been surprised that the shareholders have not made more noise since April 3rd. Because if you look at the year-to-date stock price, April 2nd was the peak. April 2nd, it was $122.82, and it has gone down since then. It's right now sitting at $93.45. It's bounced a little bit in the last few days. It's kind of come up a little, but it spends a whole lot of time in the 80s, and that's a huge loss. And I, every now and again, I'll post over on Twix, or I was like, hey, Disney board people, Disney shareholders, how's that board vote working for you? I really am wondering where the shareholders have been all this time, seeing the loss of value in the company. And, my stock portfolio has taken a nosedive when it comes with Disney. I mean, not mine personally, I'm not invested, but, people like Mikey, people who are Disney shareholders, where are they? Why are they not making more noise over all of this?
I think they're being silenced, and I think there will be some lawsuits in the next couple of years, to be honest with you, Jason. I know some of your questions are rhetorical, but yeah.
The vast majority of them are not significant shareholders either, so they don't actually have a say. There's also that too.
Yeah, that's the other problem you have, and that's the answer that usually we have to give, and that is that the people who actually have any say or sway are the companies and people are attached to companies and people who are all for most of this kind of shit.
Yeah.
So they're all in the same cesspool right along with, like, that's the thing with Bob is like we're acting like one symptom is
is a source of everything. It's not
source of everything when it could be the other way around. Bob is just acting this way because that's the way the board wants it to be, because you got one guy from BlackRock and you got one guy from here and one person from there and da 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 da. And they all want this DEI shit because we all know why, because that's what we're taking us right back around to the Am I Racist thing. It's a fucking scam. It's a grift, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, you got to have people put this shit in place or there's no money in it, right? And this is what we've all said from the start is like, this is no different than somebody who sells you windows, standing outside, breaking your fucking window, and then going, guess what? It's a shitty thing that somebody broke your window, but I can fix that for you. That's exactly what it is, right?
And they take a month to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the other part too, and this is like the hard truth, is that if you only own one stock in Disney, Disney does not care about you. And guess what? A lot of their stockholders only own one stock.
Yeah.
One
or
share.
Very few, or just like,
or it's part of a mutual fund or something else like that.
Or it's part of something that they get from their job.
Because I think Mikey and others have pointed out for a while now that Disney stock has been extremely overpriced. Right, that's part of the problem. I think you've even pointed out.
Oh, I said it should never be above $40.
Yeah, it has been way up there, and regardless, I think you brought it up earlier, Jason. It's the highest it's ever been under Chapek, which makes no sense in how everybody just completely fucking ignores that. But I'm not surprised, considering this is the same media that does what it does on a weekly fucking basis to the, one side of the aisle here. It's like Trump's been shot at twice, but you wouldn't know about it. So.
Well, don't forget the bomb scare.
Yeah, and the bomb. Well, I heard that was a false scare, but yeah, still just the same. But Dearest sends in 2 and says, "Is Iger trying to jump ship before it falls apart?" No, I don't know if it's.
Iger is trying to save Iger.
That's a good question, though. Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's more to do with him.
That's
yes
all he's
to your
worried
answer, but I don't know if he's gonna. My point is, I don't think he's ever gonna admit that the ship needs to be jumped from. Does that make sense?
Well, and the only way, if Iger still has political ambitions, the only way that he succeeds at doing that is saving his legacy at Disney. He's not out to save the company. He's out to save his position so that he can do whatever it is the next thing that he does. I think he probably was going that direction when they put Chapek in place, and then pandemic hit and he saw the whole thing collapse. All of the stuff that he'd put in place was now causing the company to go, just completely off the rails. He's like, oh, I got to fix this before I can run for president. Because if I have failed the Walt Disney Company, I'm never going to get elected. I think that's at the core of everything that Iger has been trying to do since he came back. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and Six sent me an interesting quote from I think this is Jennifer Lee saying this, if I'm not mistaken, about her demotion. I am so grateful to Bob and Alan for supporting my decision to return to filmmaking full time. Every day working with them is a masterclass in I can't even say it. Creativity.
So here's a question.
It just keeps going on. Yeah.
What if it actually was her decision? She rats jumping from the sinking ship. She's like, oh crap, this whole thing's falling down around my ears. I'd better get out now and just concentrate on the one thing that I know will make money in Frozen. And I'll let all of this. I'll leave somebody else carrying this.
I'm gonna more lean into, what was it, Nick, that you brought up earlier? She got the Amy Pascal deal.
I did not, but someone else did.
Somebody did. It was either you or Price, or somebody did.
Probably Price.
This is definitely the Amy Pascal deal. This was she. She would have just gotten fired otherwise, or left. She ain't got no place else to go. Right? She's Richard Gere right now. I got no place else to go.
None of them do.
And I'm sure they wanted to get rid of her, but they're like, either she's probably got a contract till probably 2028 or something like that. Who knows? I don't know. And they probably would have had to pay her out God knows how much script. You probably have a good idea, more than I would. So they're probably like, okay, she's a part of this. Either way, we're stuck with her because she's a producer on all these things. Because isn't she one of the people who was one of the originators for Frozen anyway? That's why she was made.
She wrote and directed the first one, and I think she wrote the second one.
Exactly. So that's why she's part of it.
Which is fine.
It's Amy Pascal deal.
You did this thing. It was a good thing. It was a hit. It's very popular. Go do that again. And everything else somebody else can do. Maybe it's a way to, maybe it's a step in fixing things. Go with your strengths. Look, this is what you're good at. You go concentrate on that. I just agree because she's the originator. She probably has some kind of ownership over something in it that they can't get rid of her. It's kind of like even more so than the Amy Pascal deal, where she just inserted herself into Spider-Man, right? Like this was her comes from her, so that's probably why. But anyway, that being said, I think it's hilarious. And I agree with you. I think that there is a sentiment inside the company that is trying to push some of these things out. We already seen that with the whole uproar over Inside Out 2, right? Going along with this whole thing. And the reason this is happening is because that's the first real hit they have had in 3-4 years now, animation wise. Yeah.
Since Moana, Encanto, something like that. One of those movies.
So. Yeah.
One of the Frozen sequels, maybe. Because at this point,
was it Encanto that got an Oscar nod? Which one?
I think so, but that's the one that they ended up burying during COVID. But then it got popular because people actually watched it on Disney Plus or whatever and got into the soundtrack, if I remember right.
And look, if they're going to make decisions like let's do it Inside Out 2 and let's not put a chick in it and make it gay and appeal to the mass audience, I'm all for it. I'm not gonna sit there and criticize Disney just because criticize Disney. And I've said this before, and we've talked about this with regard to a lot of different franchises, Star Trek, Star Wars, wherever. If they do something that works, if they do something that actually appeals to a mass audience that fits the tone of the history of the thing and respects the source material, we should be sitting there going, more of this, please. And I think sometimes we don't do that enough.
No, and I think Chapek was the one who's been responsible for a lot of this shit. In fact, I think when Iger come out in that one thing and said we got Toy Story 5, we got Frozen 3 and 4, and all the other sequels that he promised, I have a feeling Chapek greenlit all those.
I think you're right.
Because I think Chapek is the kind of guy where he didn't have a creative bone in his body either. But the first thing he did is go, okay, what works? Right? Well, I'll tell you what, ever since Toy Story 2, The Pixar films have been able to been sequelized, no problem. They don't have the stigma that the Disney films have. So because of that, the first thing he's going to do is, well, Toy Story 4 did very well. We did Frozen 2, that did very well. Let's get those going. Let's get Inside Out 2 going because Inside Out did well. That all seems like a logical thing for somebody like in his position and who thinks like somebody like him probably does.
Yep.
Same thing when Ryan Reynolds come knocking on the door and said, "Oh, it's not Bob Iger. Can I get this movie made?" Guess who's interested? Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And Chapek's like, "Sure, why not?"
Yeah, go with what works. And same as with David Zaslav over on Warner Brothers. You know, we're going to make decisions based on, can it make us money? And I think Chapek's in that same mold. And a lot of people talked about that at that time when Zaslav took over Warner Brothers Discovery and was just villainized and pilloried in the trades for some of the stuff that he wanted to do. But we all talked about it at the time. You know, Zaslav was making the right moves in that if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense for us to do it. Why are we spending money on something that doesn't work? And if it's proven not to work, why are we spending more money on it after the fact?
Right.
I think Chapek's that same way. You know, what can we do? What made money? Let's do more of that and make more money.
And he may have just been a layover CEO too. Let's be real. Like, maybe. Again, if he'd just got things back on track, that's when you do bring in a creative guy, right? That's when you do bring in somebody like an Eisner who has the idea that can go, look, I'm willing to give it a shot, right? Because that's what made him who he was at first, because he was willing to take Disney to places they never did before, even at the risk of people saying Walt would never do that. As long as it was fucking successful, guess what? It didn't goddamn matter. Because you put shit out like Splash, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Three Men and a Baby, that shit kept them alive in the 80s. It wasn't the animated films.
Right.
Right? We wouldn't have Disney today if it wasn't for those three movies that I just mentioned.
Well, and
that's the goddamn truth.
And connected to that, Disney needs to have those other brands, Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone.
Exactly. The Mighty Ducks films, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the Apple Dumpling games.
Yeah, where are those
imprints?
Yeah. All of that stuff. And the next guy, the creative guy, doesn't necessarily have to be the CEO. You can have a Bob Chapek as CEO and get a creative operation, you know, a COO or a chief creative officer like Lucasfilm's got with Filoni, you know, that position, a dedicated creative C-suite officer who can handle the talent and the writing and the creative and all of that. But the CEO is like, okay, where are we going to make money? Do that.
Yeah, the CEO is usually on selection marketing, right? Like when you take a look at Warner Brothers, so you have David Zaslav at the top. You then have Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi in one section overlooking general Warner Brothers pictures. And then you got James Gunn and Peter Safran looking over their DC properties. And then I don't think he's named someone yet over the Harry Potter franchise.
There's somebody over the animation, and I can't remember who.
And then and then there's another one over the animation. But he's basically saying, like, I'm going to be the money guy. You are going to be my creative team, and then underneath that is going to be all the people that needs to pull this off on the financials and on the creativity as a result. Yep. I think that's a pretty decent model to have. And you're right, the trades are basically going after Zaslav because they just don't like who he is politically, and the fact that he's willing to cut, and he's also decreasing all of his DEI stuff at Warner Brothers very subtly, mind you. And yet he's making better decisions for that company. And there's Bob Iger, you know, down the road making horrible decisions for the company. And they're just like praising him with the exception of that New York Times article. And you're like, well, clearly they're not being objective in this part. Clearly they don't actually care about the industry. They just care about who is better for their own reputation and who wields the power. And this is since Disney got its foothold on Hollywood pretty much around 2014, that is when the industry started to suffer severely, because that is not their position in Hollywood. They're not supposed to be a top studio. They're supposed to be a safe middle studio. Yeah. And because they got to the top and because they got so much power and people started following the trail that they blazed for everyone else, it's a lot of studios suffered. And now that they've basically gone off that beaten path and said, nope, we're going to go back to the well. We're going to do this. It's going to be a very steep climb and a difficult one. But we do know if we can make that summit, we are going to be back where we need to be. And there's a lot of people dragging those studios that are climbing up there as far back as they can, because they just don't want to see or have to admit the fact that everything they thought would be the quick and easy fix to revitalize Hollywood, ended up doing the exact opposite.
Well, it's not just that, but you think about that time period, 2013, 2014. That's when Gamergate started.
Yep.
And we all know that Gamergate is the source of every evil in the United States right
now.
Yeah. So
Gamergate. Yeah, and I love that Rabnad brought up Ernest here, because back in the 80s and 90s, the Ernest films for Disney were basically what the Friday the 13th movies and the Police Academy movies were for Paramount and Warner Brothers, respectively.
You know, that character was such a fluke. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought? I remember seeing it. He was doing Brahms commercials in Texas.
Yep. And he did regional shit. Yep.
How did this become, let's make Ernest a movie star? I was just like, it was such a weird
thing.
They
tried it a few times, but Ernest just happened to be one of those characters. I always called him the redneck Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Because that's basically the audience that he had. He appealed to the same kids who liked Pee Wee Herman, Weird Al. He is that goofy, we can fix it with duct tape guy. It is a funny fucking character that transcended what they initially had set him up to do. And when Ernest Goes to Camp came out and made so much fucking money compared to what it cost to make. And that's the kind of movies Disney's used to fucking make.
Yep.
Like a little next to nothing movie, right? And it made buco bucks. I think it probably made what, 20, 30, 40 million dollars in the box office, somewhere in there, with inflation, at least that and more. And then the sequels did I think the Christmas one did even better than the rest of them. For some reason, that's a harder one to get, but that one did excellent in the theaters from what I remember. And then Ernest Scared Stupid did it really well too.
Oh, that blew up. I remember that.
I know that one did very, very well. So there was a time period there where Ernest was hotter than shit. He started to fall off and then they started doing straight to video stuff and he left Disney, but then they even brought him back for one or two, because I know they did the Slam Dunk Ernest and I think another one at Disney yet. After he went to some straight to video one.
Yeah, well, and then when he did Beverly Hillbillies
Yep. That was him at his peak. Yeah. And he still doesn't get it. That movie still doesn't get enough credit for how good it is. I just watched that like 2-3 weeks ago on D, because it still hasn't come out on Blu-ray. It never will because of Disney. That movie does not get enough credit for how it was probably one of the better of those 1990s. We're going to make a movie out of a TV show. I hold it right up there with Addams Family. Why? Because it was perfectly cast and they didn't fuck with nothing. They basically took the original script and they just made it a movie. Because in fact, it's almost because my cousins were in the play of Beverly Hillbillies. They did it as a play. So I don't know if it was a standard thing that they just pulled or if it was just a few of the episodes that they put together. That's basically what it is. Like the first 2 or 3 episodes was the play. And this reminded me of the play. It was almost the same fucking story. And it even had like the whole love thing and all that kind of stuff with bringing in a bride and stuff. So I think that's what they basically adapted, if I'm not mistaken. But I liked it.
It's the safest thing to do. I mean, I was part of a community theater company here a while back, and we did staged readings adapting The Lone Ranger. So we basically did, kind of like Leonard Nimoy and John Delancey did with Alien Voices. We're reading the scripts on stage, and we got the scripts for the first, 5 or 6 episodes of the old Clayton Moore series, and just basically took that and revamped it so you could do it as a stage reading, and we didn't change very much. I was like, why would you mess with it? If this works, this succeeded, this was popular, let's do that. Again, that goes back to what we were talking about with Chapek and Zavlab. What works, do that, make money. So
I can't not laugh when I think about Diedrich Bader's
yeah.
I think I figured out this here game. You throw this ball down this gully here, and then you whomp yourself down there and try to knock down as many pins as you can before the ball gets there.
It's like Andy Griffith. What it was a football. That's such a great bit.
And the fucking monkey gets a goddamn strike. then what's better is you got the hot Ellie Mae chick from I can't remember, was she in Baywatch or what show was it? Yeah.
Oh,
what was it?
yes.
What show was she on at that time? Wasn't
She was
Baywatch?
on. She was on Under Siege, and she did Baywatch, and then she.
Oh, was it Baywatch? Okay.
Yeah, she was in Baywatch, and then she popped out of the cake in Under Siege.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and she did Playboy. That was what I was.
Yeah. I actually got to interview her one time, but I never could use it because my kid shot it, and the camera kind of did this every time.
Well, I would have figured it would have kept going down, but okay.
Well, he was like 12, so
exactly.
He just wasn't paying attention. He'd start looking at something over here, and the camera would kind of slide sideways. Whatever.
I would say you'd think at 12 he'd be like just zoomed in on the cleavage, just like, and she had some nice ones.
She's a nice gal. Nice she was good to talk to too. She's very.
Well, that's
very
good to hear. That's good to hear because sometimes people like that can be jerks. But then we got Action Com who sends in 5 and says, I got to disagree with you. Script, pull up the George Carlin plus Underdogs interview. Afterwards, you tell me if he would defend Dave Chappelle. Okay, we'll have to check out that one then. Because I wasn't sure the context either, Action Com. I'd have to see what jokes was
Underdogs
he specifically talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
That must be what he's talking about. I don't know how long it is. If it's short, go ahead and throw it in the thing here. But if it's not, then...
Did you guys say? And this is completely off topic, but something that Tom's put in the chat kind of made me remember. Did you guys see that Roland Emmerich is trying to do a Lawrence of Arabia TV show?
No, why?
Yeah, got me. Hey, apparently there's a script. It's called Lawrence in Arabia because reasons. But yeah, Roland Emmerich is shopping around a Lawrence of Arabia, a T.E. Lawrence TV show.
So it's kind of a different approach. It's a retelling of the actual story, I imagine.
It's basically, it's just remaking the movie as a TV show.
Well, why the movie's based on a true story, right? Like that's my point.
Yeah.
So,
but
I mean, if you're telling
you don't need to do it.
Well, I guess
Roland Emmerich.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
Like, look, I was going to say timeout. Like, I don't have an issue with like historical events, things like that, especially if you're going to do like a mini series or a TV show or something that's going to really expand upon. Yeah. Even if there is a movie already, fine. Lawrence of Arabia, though, is a little, it's kind of one of those movies you shouldn't touch. So I see, okay, yeah, doing it as a TV adaptation, fine. If you want to get more into the nitty gritty of the real true story, fine. You had me until Roland Emmerich.
Right? I mean, when's the last time he had a successful film?
Exactly. Because I love Lawrence of Arabia, but
right?
Pretty much. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I saw that that came across in an email the other day. I was like, what in the world is this?
Well, Six just sent me it here in the background. Thank you, Six. I thought you had probably passed out by now, but here you Yeah, so you're not lying. Yeah, I mean, it can be an interesting story to tell. That's where I'm not gonna play a total like knee-jerk no. Yeah. But like Roland Emmerich, last guy. Like what the fuck's gonna happen in it with Roland Emmerich? Is there gonna be aliens and shit?
Right.
Some dog boy or some shit?
That's just crazy.
But anyhow, Action Com, I want to check this interview out too, but if it was shorter, like I said, then we can show it here, but if it's too long, then I don't know. You can only send it to me, DM it to me on X too or something. But no, I don't know about this. Because I don't want to act like any movie that's based on a historical thing is, you can't approach it. Like, how many movies do we have about Jesus?
Well, seriously, you see, we're getting Passion of the Christ 2.
Yeah, well, I know that's been happening for a while. My concern with that is when are we getting Lethal Weapon 5? Because I know.
Right, but how do you do Passion of the Christ 2?
Oh, I know that already. I already know what's going on there. I thought they already started shooting it. I'll believe it's actually shooting.
Are they doing the Book of Acts or something, or what?
It's basically him. It's him right after death and the return, but it's about his journey coming back on the third day or whatever. So it's all the stuff from going through hell and all that. It's like it's going to be more of that's my understanding anyway, from what I know. So it is going to be still played by the same guy or whatever. What's his name? Jason Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel.
Jim or Jason,
Caviezel.
Whichever one. Yeah. Anyway, him. But as far as the rest of it goes, I don't have any more clue, but that's my understanding. And I know he was talking about it being such a big story that he might even split it up into 2 movies. So we're possibly getting Passion of Christ 2 and 3. But they've been saying they're going to shoot it in like a few months for like years now. So every time this story comes up, I keep saying I will believe it when I actually see some footage from the fucking set. Because at this point, this movie is supposed to have been done for a while. And the other part I keep bringing up is Script. You may have been the one who told me about this, but somebody told me that Mel is not going to do Lethal Weapon 5 until Passion of the Christ 2 is done. And I don't even think Warner Brothers is interested in doing Lethal Weapon 5 as Mel is now that Donner is gone. That's kind of the impression that I was getting. I think maybe I was talking to somebody else about it.
Well, the thing is, I think he desperately wants. I know for a fact because I have a couple of colleagues that actually have spoken to Mel recently. I know for a fact he really wants to do Lethal Weapon 5. He also really wants to do Passion of the Christ. He will do whatever one will be greenlit first. It's up in the air at this point because you could not listen. You could grab a coin, flip it, and call out heads for Lethal Weapon and tails for Passion of the Christ, and you still wouldn't know 100% what it would be when it lands. That's just how it is right now. Because Mel, he's not ostracized in Hollywood the way people want to think, or at least want to put out. People still want to work with him. People still like him. It's just that he's gotten to that age. That has happened for a lot of male actors where it's like, okay, he can choose what she actually wants to work on. And at the same time, he's also not going to be as big of a box office draw anymore. And the sad truth is that we don't actually have anyone of the younger generation to replace him. So we have this very strange talent gap going on. Who between the ages of 20 and 35 that isn't a squeaky little weasel boy like Timothée Chalamet is going to bring in people to see an action film or to see a really compelling drama or a comedy? They're not there because Hollywood isn't really investing in them right now. So Mel's got an angle going on, which is that, yeah, he's of that age where he should be doing more selective work. But at the same time, there's no one else that's like him or would make people forget about him that would compromise his ability to get things made. And so he's in that weird stage right now.
That's quite the dilemma for Mel. And that, I will say a script that is really refreshing to hear that it seems like he still has some goodwill within the industry, considering I know he's really out about we'll just say positions. So we don't go into that territory, but that's good. And it sounds like people who have worked with them do like working with them. Hopefully it seems like that's definitely carried over. And, for whatever projects he does working going forward, I have a feeling Passion of the Christ will be the thing that gets greenlit first. He seems to be talking more about that one lately. If one comes up first, but man, I would love if there was at least one more Lethal Weapon. And I just feel like that would be right up his eye. The whole crazy old man, it's not just crazy guy, but crazy old man. Come on, that's Mel Gibson on roids right there.
Well, he wouldn't be crazy anymore because he got over that after Lethal Weapon 2. But he would be like, oh, he's the dad now. He's now Roger Murtaugh's situation where he's got to start thinking about his family and kids because that's how he left off. And that's an interesting angle for him to play with.
Or he's the captain now. And he's got to be the one to hold everybody down. That my question on a Lethal Weapon 5. One, yes, Richard Donner being gone, that's a factor. But from a political angle, would Danny Glover even be willing to work with Mel Gibson at this point?
Yeah, they're still friends.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've heard no beef between them at all.
Okay, because Glover has been very outspoken politically on some things, and I don't think they align that much. And I didn't know
if they've always worked together. And Mel's always
as far as I know, I think everybody was signed on when Donner died. Like I said, from what I heard and understood, everything was pretty much ready to go until Donner passed. The only thing that was kind of holding things up was Donner's health, was my understanding. And I don't know if you want to back me up.
Who would you get for health and one part script? They hadn't nailed the script yet.
Who would
I do
you
know
get
that it
to
was
replace
supposed to be. Well, they had a choice, and that was because Donner had flat out said, if I don't make it, I want you to make this, Mel.
Yeah.
And that was the understanding. But basically the idea that I was hearing, because script, I'm sure at this point, I don't know, I think the script is done now, but because from what I know is that Chris Rock is also supposed to be back, and it's supposed to be about their kids that were born at the end of part 4. And I think either one of them or both of them are going to end up being cops now too. So I'm sure at this point, Danny Glover's character is long retired, right? So it's going to, it's going to probably be like, kind Kind of like how Bad Boys was pushing Martin into the like retire. Any one of these movies now, I know they're going to retire him, and they already got about 2 or 3 characters set up that could take his place with Will, right, in the action sequences. And then they can just pull him in for, when we need an extra hand in the, control room shit.
How much do you think Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley would impact whether they greenlight Lethal Weapon 5 or not?
Very little. Although I see the connection, and I think
same kind of thing.
The problem is Warner wouldn't know what kind of an impact that had. Unfortunately, not exactly, because unless they get inside numbers from Netflix, they would have no idea. So I don't think that they're even paying attention to that. Beetlejuice, on the other hand, that might have more to say about it, because I that's where I think some of these Goonie rumors and shit were coming from, was because I think there was some talks at Warner Brothers last Monday about like, what else do we have from that era that we can sequelize and now?
Yeah.
And do the similar kind of thing to. And I'm sure Goonies came up in the conversation. Somebody ran with it. People, like, I think Script pointed this out, or somebody did on one of the last shows, where Goonies 2 is just like Beetlejuice 2, where everybody's been making these fake posters for them for years. Because one of the kids that was in the movie will say something stupid to somebody in the press, and somebody will run with it like they're actually working on it. And even Richard Donner was guilty of that himself. There's a connection here to the Lethal Weapon thing, where he'd even hint at once in a while there may be a sequel, but then sometimes he'd be like, no, there ain't going to be no sequel. So like, finally, at least they were smart enough. They had Corey Feldman, and I can't remember who else, confirmed that no, there has been zero talks. I think Sean Astin and a few other people come out after. And that's what I was trying to tell people. Well, first of all, the dead giveaway that it wasn't true was that the poster everybody was using wasn't even a real poster. It was an AI poster. I could tell you that, for many fucking reasons. And not only that, if they were just throwing it out there to test it, because if there was going to be a Goonies 2, it would have happened 20 years ago. At this point, it would be about their fucking grandkids.
But see, now Data is an Oscar winner.
That's another thing.
And he's back to acting.
But half the other kids aren't, and Corey Feldman's crazy.
Yeah. Well, but I think a lot of the studios are doing that, because MGM Amazon is what I've seen. I guess it was Jay over at Sidetrack. So they're really hot to get Stargate back up and running. And
that's one I've heard, but there's a bunch of things that keep getting in the way of it. I don't know as much about it as you guys do, but yeah, I hear rumblings once in a while about Stargate. But yeah, I think now that it's at MGM Amazon, it's got more of a chance than it would have when they were just MGM on their own.
I know the movie fell apart, but they're still talking about a new TV series that would be a revival, not a reboot. So basically, sequel picks up where the original, where SG1 and all of those shows left off. So, but none of the original production people are part of it. Brad Wright, Joe Malazzi, any of those guys, they're not in it. So
I was going to say, wasn't part of the problem, to get back to Roland Emmerich, wasn't he part of the problem?
Well, he does still own significant rights to
that. Was what I was going to say. That I don't know if I'm even supposed to say this, but I was talking to somebody about this recently, and that's what I kept hearing was part of the problem that kept stemming, was that since they have ownership over, they nixed one of the things that was like really close to getting greenlit.
I think at one point,
I don't know if I should say much more than that. So yeah,
wasn't there at one point, because I think Dean Devlin talked about it about 25, 30 years later, because that's where we were at the time, that they were talking about doing a sequel to the movie.
Yeah, it was those
Kurt
two
Russell
guys
and James Spader back.
That might have been what got in the way here, because it was those guys who have a say and sway in this situation still, and I can't remember.
Yeah, but that was what that's been
like 2010.
Yeah,
it doesn't. No, but my point is they still have ownership over it, so like they still have a say in it. So whatever was going to happen before, because we were going to get a revival series of whatever one of the last ones was, I can't remember now.
Well, Universe was the last one that came out.
Yeah, it was the one with one of the more popular TV series. They were going to pick up a new,
because Brad Wright has been pushing
that was who I think it
was a long
and
while
then
to redo SG1.
That was getting really close, or somebody was anyway. I don't even remember, because I don't keep up with the SG shit. That's why I don't know all this stuff. I just know when people talk to me about it, and I'm just like, because it's like talking through a brick wall, because I don't know the people. I've seen the movie. years ago.
You know, if you
and I know the series has a big following. I just never was able to get into it because I didn't have Showtime.
If anybody on the inside wants to talk about Stargate and you don't, send them to me.
All right. If somebody comes at me again with any of it, I'll definitely send them your way. Right. But yeah, no, like that was last I knew, and that was a while ago. And basically, from what I had heard, what had gotten in the way was we were really close to getting a revival series, and Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich happened, and got in the way. So like, and then I've also heard some rumors that Kurtzman had been sniffing around Stargate. So
oh God, I hope not.
Yeah, that was another thing I kept hearing. So, but because everything at Paramount right now is at a complete dead halt from what I've heard. Like Academy hasn't started shooting yet. The only shows that have really done any movement have been like the Sheridan shows and a few.
That's what I'd heard about Academy, but I couldn't find anybody to confirm it.
I can't confirm it either, but
shooting. Well,
that's just it. Yeah,
you're probably hearing it from somebody different from who I heard it from. So
I'm just going off of that
thing. So
I was more or less going off of what I was. Somebody had told me, probably the same person who told you. I'm willing to guess. And then I had heard something from somebody that basically almost every show had pretty much been shut down or is in a dead halt right now, except for any CBS, any shows that are basically, you know, active shows. Yeah. Like Stallone's show was still getting finished, and the Yellowstone Sheridan shows weren't affected. The CBS shows weren't affected, but like a lot of the other stuff was kind of in limbo. That's what I had heard, kind of similar to something to that. So like, yeah, and I figured maybe that considered. They mentioned something about the streaming shows. So
yeah, it could be we've got the same source. Same person who told me that that the cameras have not started rolling on Academy. Also told me that Skydance Paramount they're actively trying to negotiate and buy Kurtzman's contract out to get him out.
That could be a possibility.
I can't put any faith to that. I don't know. I mean, bags of salt.
Well, it's funny because that segues into another story I just got sent by Six here that actually is interesting, because one thing I was hearing a lot is that they wanted a sequel to Picard, and they wanted Terry Matalas to do it, but Kurtzman didn't want that.
Yeah.
So Terry Matalas has been out getting other work, and it looks like now he's been tapped to do a Magic the Gathering series for Netflix.
Why?
So there you go.
Well, because he's doing Vision for Marvel.
Yep. Which he's probably already completed. So
it's just a mini series, from my understanding. Yeah.
And let me ask you guys: does anybody think that it's a good idea to remake Enemy Mine? Because Matalas wrote that script.
No, but the thing is, Steve Asbell over at 20th Century Studios, he cannot get original stuff made. Is what's the scuttlebutt? Is like he wants to, but Disney's still got the bigger power on the greenlighting side of things, and he's got this head of the studio that is also making decisions. So right now, I think what Steve is trying to do is he's trying to say, if I can find these creative writers and directors that can make some remakes that make us money, that might be my leverage to start getting original stuff produced again.
Get a track record. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very smart guy. I haven't met him, but all I've been getting for the last like year and a half are just messages from friends who's like Steve is just kind of knocking it out of the park, you know, handling all the politics and whatnot there. So I hope he gets successful, because apparently he's probably going to be one of the few saving grace pseudo studio heads in town.
I mean, season 3 of Picard was not great, but Terry Matalas proved that he actually understands what makes Star Trek work to a point. I mean, he's limited by what was in season 1 and season 2. He's got to work with what already came before, but he at least, I think, understands what you got to do to make a good Star Trek show. And if the fans had any say in it, Legacy would already be in production. And I'm hearing that Skydance is sitting there going, "Why isn't Legacy already in production, Alex? This is the one that everybody wants. Why?" And then Kurtzman apparently is backtracking and digging his heels in because it wasn't his success. Sidetrack had a video that's saying that Kurtzman was being petty about it, and he's digging his heels in.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to greenlit Legacy. Instead, he gave us this Justin Simeon, Tawny Newsome office comedy. It's like, nobody wants this. Nobody's going to watch this. Nobody buys it. Skydance wants Legacy. Why aren't we doing Legacy? Because that's what the fans want. So
at this point, I trust Metalis. I love his take on 12 Monkeys, and I enjoyed Picard season 3. Give him more, see what he does with it.
I really wish Manny Cotto was still around. Because
I think Kurtzman's just hoping he finds work and he'll be too busy to do anything, and then he'll get to either run whatever and it won't matter. So
yeah,
that's my thinking on this whole thing, because that's what I kept hearing, was that he kept running interference on this whole thing. Because even before Skydance was a part of this, even Paramount was like kind of interested in pursuing it, and basically that's what I kept hearing, was that Kurtzman was being a cock block for the exact same reason you just said, because it wasn't his baby.
Yep.
And it was the first thing they've had that was successful since he's been there. And it was the one time he wasn't paying attention to something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because I remember when Robert Meyer Burnett sat and watched all of Picard season 3, I looked at Terry and said, "How did you manage to do this?" And according to Rob, Metalis said nobody cared. Nobody was looking over my shoulder. They just let me do it. And I was like, sometimes that's what you do. I mean, look at Firefly. You know, when Firefly got canceled, they just leaned into, okay, let's just go crazy. You know, Enterprise. When Manny Cotto became showrunner for Enterprise, it was already canceled, but Manny Cotto came in and said, "Aren't we making a Star Trek show? Why don't we make it a Star Trek show?" I wish he'd gotten a season 5.
So do I. I would have been interning on that. Because that's how I got, that was one of the stipulations of my internship when I went to Paramount, before they then broke it. Oh yeah, we're splitting up and Enterprise has been canceled and all these horrible things have happened. You're like, well, son of a gun.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I would have got to meet Scott Bakula. That would have been cool.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to roll through the rest of these super chats and member chats here. And I think we're going to wrap this up. Penny sends in a member chat for 6 months. Thank you so much for that. And says, "Did you notice that Bewitched House was used in Agatha all along and Serena animation flyer on Broom and credits?" No, I didn't watch the show, so I can't speak to that, Penny. But if anybody here on the panel did notice,
I didn't notice that part. No.
You have a much keener eye than
I noticed the poster at the end credits of like the Bewitched thing that they did, but I didn't notice anything in the actual show itself of that.
I remember the one when they did it for WandaVision. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the same show creator, Jacqueline Schaefer. I think it's Schaefer, yeah.
And then we got Tim Hayes, who's been here for 35 months. Thank you so much, Tim, for being a huge supporter. And Mikey still hanging in there in the chat and says, "I'm not watching any more Metalis until Metalis goes to Home Depot and buys some light bulbs for ever shoots another scene again."
Well, you have to remember, he did use all the light. It was on the Enterprise D. Like that's where it was.
He used his light budget on that.
Yeah. Remember, all the other
you got to budget this much for your light budget.
All the other sets were from the previous season. He couldn't add any more lights, but he decided, okay, we'll build the Enterprise D, and you actually put in some lights and open some windows.
Well, and didn't I see Dave Blass, who was the production designer for season 3? Didn't I want to say that I saw him post an answer to a question on Twitter that the set was taken apart after they shot it, but it's still around.
Yeah, it's in pieces.
Okay, so it's still available if they need it, and that's a good sign.
Yep.
No, Paramount used to keep that shit all the time. Eric Wimberg is in the house and he gifted a membership. Thank you, Eric, for the support, man. Appreciate it. As always, huge supporter of Mead Radio as well. All right, so with that, Script, anything to plug? Saturday Script?
Yeah, I'm going to be heading over to Price of Reason Live in about 35 minutes to talk some Quantum Leap and Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell. So go head over there. It'll be a fun conversation. And on top of that, I got good old CC Karaoke joining me this Saturday for Scripts on Saturday. So, yeah, it could be a fun show.
Awesome. Sauce, CC, what do you got going on besides that? Okay on Friday?
I think I've only just recovered from last Friday. May have to pass on this one, but I'll definitely be with Script on Saturday.
All right. So no Okie this week, it sounds like. All right.
I can't promise it, no.
All right, Nick.
Hi. So yeah, I'll be on TNT shortly, surviving to hear what Brahman Comics thought of that one show. Other than that, of Clubby's Comic Shop tomorrow night, we'll be having Aaron Sparrow on. You guys know in chat, he's major part of West from Thinking Critical's channel. Really good guy. He has his own book coming out, so we're going to promote that. Should be fun. I think it's called Kneel Before Doomface, so that should be cool. And of course, next week, Toxic Tuesday, we're going to do Billy Madison, so it's going to be diabolically huge. So yeah, hope to see some of you at one of those shows. If not, in a half hour at TNT. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Because we're going back to school.
Your pants is cool.
You ain't cool unless you pee your pants. So yes, we're going to talk some Billy Madison on Toxic Tuesday. Can't wait for that. And Jason of Sci-Fi For Me TV, tell the folks where they can find you and anything you got coming up.
Yes, Sci-Fi For Me TV, sci-fi4me.com, where Mrs. Boss just updated the convention list. Again, we are now at 3,216 Comic-Cons worldwide on that list. We have Open Line Friday tomorrow during Live from the Bunker. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we are on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. So you can find us on all those places, and then all the different social media channels, places, platforms, and a Discord. We're everywhere. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
No problem. Thanks for being here. And with that, I don't know if I'll be on TNT or not, because if they're going to talk about Agatha, I didn't watch Agatha.
I didn't either, but it'll be fun to listen to these guys talk about it.
Well, I'm probably have editing to do, so we'll see. We'll see. With that, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the morning show. Bye-sies.
It's a combination of Dirty Dozen, Seven Samurai, and